And we're live. Well, we're live to YouTube. D Live doesn't look like it started yet, but I'm sure it will in a minute.
Oh, we got a D Live.
Yeah, I've joined a site called Restream, where you can stream to more than one place. Looks like
yo ho ho, yo ho ho,
ho ho ho. Green.
It's the season to be jolly.
So which one of us is past? Which one's present?
Have you heard that bit where you can take a Christmas?
I don't know.
I mean, they spray the trees, so try it.
I'm a bar hopper.
That you can, boil down or soak the trees, and then you get this green tinge in your hair.
Carol singers, like F off, like nah.
I'm hearing weird voices from somewhere.
Come, all ye faithful.
I like carols.
Am I not coming in clearly?
Coming around my door and singing them, sort of thing.
Oh, I think Schaefer's joined us on the Jitsi. Yeah, Schaefer's joined us on the Jitsi. Ah, right. Oh, I can hear you, Jay. I was hearing voices. I didn't know where it was coming from.
Oh, Schaefer.
Yes, we need to
find across the pond.
Yes, we need to pile into the Jitsi.
Oh God.
I was hearing voices. I was wondering where they were coming from.
Give us a link then.
I don't know if I'm going to work though.
I've put it in general.
I got a browser warning in bloody Jitsi.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. We were elsewhere because we weren't sure if you were coming or not.
Is Jafer on Discord?
Yes. No. Jafer's in Jitsi.
I wonder if he had a Discord account, because I don't know if I'm going to work. I get a browser warning in Jitsi.
I can hear you in two places now, so you should be fine.
Shall I exit Discord then?
Yep.
Yeah.
We just got to wait for Hobbit to catch us up. Ah, we go. Hobbit's here as well.
Oh.
I've got to...
Oh. Hello, can you hear me?
This is. I can hear everybody absolutely fine.
No, you can't. That's a lie. Don't pretend you can hear me.
Please.
Yo ho ho.
So here we are. Well, it looks like for some reason that D Live isn't starting up, but we're on YouTube, so that's all that matters. This was only an experiment.
I don't have. I'm looking at my subscriptions, and I don't think I have you on there. Is it Fortean Times? Is it Hemmingford Gear?
Yes, Hemmingford Grey.
Gear H. Oh, that's why I'm not subscribed to you, Red. Hemmingford Grey. There we go.
This is
subscribe.
We're doing tech support again.
You're tuned into real boomer hours.
So, Jafer, how are we starting today? We're just doing a bit of housekeeping from last week's episode. We did numbers stations last week.
Yeah. I'm not really ready yet. I've got it. No, I've got it. Yeah, I'm ready.
We're ready.
I'm echoing. Oh God, I'm echoing.
That's not me. That's someone else.
That was a very faint echo. It's gone now. That's all
yeah,
right.
that's somebody else.
I'm hearing no echoes, but I don't know.
Well, I'm hearing wind coming down a chimney.
Yeah, that's wind coming down my chimney.
That explains that one then.
Don't forget. Hobbit lives in a Dickens novel.
All right. I don't know what bloody.
I work in a Dickens novel as well. I saw some of the mice today. I was thinking to myself, I should lay out, a bit of clementine or something for them. And then the other stuff was just like, why are you feeding the mice their vermin? I was like, yeah, but it's Christmas. We're supposed to be, goodwill to men and mice. Vermin. Good mice is a dead mice.
Hobbit.
Well, of course, there was that custom of going about and threatening people with money to entertain you for Christmas.
Oh yeah. Oh dear.
I don't know this one.
Yes.
What trick? No, not trick or treat, is it? Or maybe it's trick or treat at this time in America.
No, trick or treat.
No, I don't think we ever put up with it in America. Down will come Butler, ball and all. Some sort of Christmas song.
Oh, there is a Christmas tradition where, like, in the Victorian era, if you saw someone who looked rich, you'd be like, give us some money or we'll give you a Christmas beating.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one. I think that's what Jafer was talking about. You know this one there.
Yeah, it's some sort of Christmas tradition, like, you know, goodwill to all men, which means, hey, give us some money so that we can have a good bird. Probably not a prostitute, but an actual bird you can eat.
Sounds like wassailing. Wassailing.
Was it a wassail? It could have been a wassail. But to me, that's always been about drinking loads of cider and singing really loudly.
Yeah. I think part of it's you didn't really ask for money. You were just given money because that was the tradition kind of thing.
Yes, because the understanding that if you didn't, you get a beating was implicit.
That wasn't the dumb thing not to pay the wassailers. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but it was also, you know, it's like it was a Christmas beating, you know, to fill you with the spirit of good cheer.
Yeah.
Well, we had Penny for the Guy, which is the same sort of time of year as trick or treating, though, didn't we?
And I missed Penny for the Guy. That's far better than trick or bloody treat. Stupid gay celebration. Are we not allowed to say that on YouTube?
I don't know where we are. Where are we?
We're on YouTube.
It's Twitter that keeps banning me.
Oh yeah.
D-Live didn't kick in anyway, so.
No. Well, as you know, it's being gay is a festive thing because it is a time for gay glad tidings to all men.
Proper gay. In the old
real
sense.
gay, not the new gay, which is awful, and no one likes it. I can dig this hole further if you like.
I'm going to be back in a minute. I heard something.
Okay. Right,
Yeah.
so do you want to do your numbers station content?
I was going to... we'll come back... yes. Oh, God.
That means the fish is ready, so I better go and have a look. I best mute myself as well and be courteous.
Oh, God, I'm looking at the wrong bloody thing here. Yeah, the number stations that we did last year. Fucking hell.
Feels like last year now.
Oh, my God, I can't see. Yeah, the number stations. We didn't get to my sort of. I don't know whether it's an exclusive, but with the number stations and those one-time pairs, I did look them up on the image thing, and they do look very similar to like medieval magical squares. And I sort of connected that. I mean, magical squares. Well, where are magical squares? Well, they seem to have first appeared in Cornelius Agrippa's 3 volumes that I can't remember the title of. But then I thought, well, there's loads. Is there something like that in that Joanne's Trithemius's? Because that's a 3-volume work as well.
So what is a magical square? Or are you going to get to that?
Well, magical squares are a sort of fascinating thing in that sort of like, if you're sort of that way inclined, a magical square is a very nice, like, aesthetic object, isn't it? You've got the nice grid and the numbers in them. And I was like, when people talk about magical squares, I think that's like when people talk about sex magic and that, and I don't think anyone really knows what they're talking about. You know, they just like appeared, and like everyone's got their sort of take on it. But I think they're just, I think they might have been some sort of like cosmic download kind of thing, and probably the person who originally found the magical squares, because I don't think that was Cornelius Agrippa. I think he was like borrowing off someone else. But I think. So I think anything goes with the old magical squares. I think because I know people form like sigils of like entities from them by like, so like you go from 1 to 2 and then to 30 and then to 43, like up in the scale of the numbers. And if you draw a line, that supposedly reveals the sigil of the sort of energy or the entity behind the square. But I'm sure that was like a recent development in them. But yeah, just strange things. You know, everyone's seen that abracadabra one, or that's not really a magical square. That's more like a magical pyramid, but with letters. But yeah, magical squares. Anyway, I think well, with this Trimethius is Steganographia, written in 1499 and published in 1606. That sort of ties into political sorcery, because that sort of ties espionage with magic, like, because that book is ostensibly a book on the deployment of spirits to communicate over long distances, which again, like, ties in with radio. But
well, it also sounds a lot like remote viewing, which the army quite heavily looked into, didn't they?
I think that's a branch of remote viewing, like where you use spirits to sort of bring you the information. Yeah, but that doesn't seem to be talked about in remote viewing circles, because I suppose that's a bit too creepy if you want to get your £500 weekend remote viewing session on the go. If you start talking like maybe spirits are doing it, that sort of puts people off, doesn't it?
You may be aware that that book is one of the books owned by Sir John Dee.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. But what a fascinating thing, like a book supposedly on magic, but it's actually a work on cryptography. And so, yeah, what the hell was going on there?
Well, no one's quite figured it out, but there are certainly those that, based on that information alone, have said that John Dee, as Agent 007, the original one, was basically all this stuff was code, but this was his private stuff, and most of it got destroyed before, you know, anybody passed it on. So, well, I mean, people passed it on, but I mean, as far as, you know, starting the Golden Dawn and starting a tradition.
It's such a shame that John Dee's like diaries and that were destroyed. God, there must have been some amazing stuff in them.
Do you think they were destroyed, or do you think they were just hidden?
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? That's the thing. Were they destroyed, or were they whisked off by the Illuminati? You know,
or even the government, or something.
Well, wasn't Elias Ashmole found out that his maid was burning something that maybe she shouldn't burn, and then, hey, this is some interesting, you know, because they didn't realize that anything was in this chest. They know who owned it, but there was like a false bottom or something.
I'm pretty sure that Ashmole was a Freemason or an initiate. I'm pretty sure I've read that somewhere. But
yeah, Elias Ashmole was a Freemason.
Yeah. So I think because people say that about the Druids when they started. The Druids didn't write anything down, but you know, everything else they tell us is usually a lie. So why should we believe that? I mean,
well, if you look at the patterns in Newgrange and various other places, you find out that they actually, you know, if there wasn't a written language, there was a written language, but they, you know, it was a bunch of symbols.
Yeah.
The runes actually go back about 20,000 years before people think they were, but a little further south in Europe than Austria, Germany.
I think they must have had some kind of like runic alphabet, because you know the Druids were supposed to memorize all their lore and their knowledge, but I don't think any human can memorize that much information. I mean, it's like that Fahrenheit 451 novel and film, isn't it? I mean, I don't think they could have done it all.
Some people have unexpected ability. You know, the one guy who I am digesting and responding to his work is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and when he was in college, he wasn't anybody who memorized verses or something. He wasn't exactly stupid or something, but the guy memorized masses of information that just out of the blue. And I met a guy who in his 80s accepted Islam, and he died less than 3 years later and he had memorized the Quran. And there's people who spend their whole life reading the thing and don't come anywhere close to that.
Is that savants, isn't it? They call it, I think, like savants. You just have like some sort of strange photographic memory. Yeah.
Well, I had a Nokian vision where I got down the characters that I was hearing. This thing repeated 3 times while something happened, and then I wrote it all down. And later, I found out that it was the Anglorum Bonorum, those 49 angel names that I didn't even know until I laid the whole thing out. And then, okay, what is this? All these things start with a B. That's familiar. And then I found out, but I didn't. Other than the starting with the B part, I didn't really remember anything about that system. It wasn't anything that I've ever focused on at that point.
Did that happen when you were awake or dreaming? Or
I presume how long the experience took that I was asleep.
That's the problem I've always had, because I've had sort of like, or I've seen like lost works by Austin Osman Spare in dream with these amazing drawings and these amazing sort of words, but I can't get it down when I wake up. You know, I wake up and there's just no. I wish I had that ability to, like, if you could have like, maybe you could, if you could have like a photographic memory when you're dreaming, so when you wake up you could like write this stuff down, because it just disappears for me.
When it comes to dreams, sometimes I have dreams where I'm composing music, and it's like, oh, this is really exciting. I like this song. And when I wake up, I try and recapture it, and I never can.
Yes, it's so annoying. Yeah.
Well, I could never play any musical instrument quick enough, except maybe the drums. That you know, the whole music thing would have done well. But yeah, there are some interesting tunes and stuff that happen in visions and stuff. The old tales of fairy music and all that.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah.
Well, we did that episode about the fairies. They were talking about the fairy jig, wasn't it? Where the bloke was dancing and couldn't stop.
It sort of ties in with, who was that guy, that violinist? He supposedly channeled the devil's music, didn't he? What's his bloody name? I can't think of it. But the Devil's Trill, wasn't it? That
Robert Johnson encountered the devil at Crossroads and sold his soul for fame. And I think he released 31 songs before dying.
That seems remarkably true, that Robert Johnson story, doesn't it?
There's a couple places in America that are called the Devil's Crossroads.
Well, there's that Charlie Daniels song.
On an official basis.
There's that Charlie Daniels song, isn't there? Is it the devil went? What's the one where he plays the song against the devil or something? Isn't there?
Oh, the devil went to Georgia.
That's the one.
Yeah.
I'm going to pump. I have a project because that corner of America has so many places named after the devil. Like 11 in North Carolina alone. Georgia basically doesn't. It has the devil's elbow. That's all I've been able to find. It does have animals and stuff named after the devil, though.
What's that? What animals named after the devil?
Yeah,
the Jersey Devil.
I think there's like a devil's slime, and then there's like some sort of devil's bug, and then there's a devil's plant of some sort, and I don't quite remember. As I said, it's a potential book project.
When do you think they were named that?
Well, the particularly the Baptist, they basically. You know, because every other church thinks it's the church, whether or not they're part of the. I mean, I guess nowadays they have to get along with the convention or that sort of thing. But there's still plenty of churches but they, you know, just outside of town. We're so important that the devil has to have his own place just outside of town.
Because there's a place called the Devil's Point. On the southern coast of England, that's got something to do with Sir Francis Drake. I'm not sure whether he is because there's an admiralty, like a navy base there as well, and that goes into a whole fascinating thing where Sir Francis Drake and his famous game of bowls on the top of the cliffs was actually a cover for him using some sort of Holy Grail type ancient alien device to sort of like sort of predict the weather, which was very important because that allowed the British to win against the Spanish Armada. And yeah, it's crazy stuff. But he supposedly did it close to the
one of the
Devil's
interesting
Point.
things about I don't know. Eric von Daniken is the one that people talk about him starting things, but just like a lot of things, it may not have been him. There may have been a dozen other people talking about it, and he's just the one who wrote a bestseller. But his third book kind of starts switching into the whole, don't go directly after religion, don't go, and then, okay, 3 or 4 books in, he decides, okay, I'm going for it. Everything is the aliens, and I guess the aliens figured they could be more direct at different times and that sort of thing. But the whole I'm jumbled here. But the Holy Grail thing, as far as the Arthurian legends, traces back several hundred years earlier, and it was a holy stone.
Yeah, I think there's something to it. I think it was some kind of not some sort of library. I think it is. It was some sort of wherever it came from. I think it just contains knowledge, kind of thing. I see it more of like a crystal, maybe, or something like that, some sort of storage device. But where it comes from, who knows? But yeah.
Well, I have a little stone that I guess it resembles kind of a foot, and it has little streaks of emerald on it, and it reminds me every time I pull it out of this story of those stories in India where I will do 3 of this, and then with 2 it's all taken away. So 2 steps. I just want 2 steps. That's all the land I want, and he ends up taking the whole world, the worlds, and various things like that.
Yeah, stones are certainly odd. But a friend of mine once found this like head-shaped stone, or vaguely head-shaped stone, in a stream near here in North Wales, and I looked at it, and he gave it to. He said, "Do you want it?" And I said, "Yes, I'll have it." And I put it in my room, just in the corner, and it's very odd. Like you looked at it at one angle, and it just looked like a stone, but if you looked at it in another angle, in another light, it just looked like this head. But I tried to sort of communicate with it, but that sounds silly, but it just seemed like it had a very stony consciousness to it. Like I just couldn't make head nor tail of it. It was just like, the sort of energy of it, or whatever you want to call it, was just like a stone that was like hard to explain. But yeah, it's just like really low and sort of just simple, happy. I was happy just to be on this simple level of just sort of a stony sort of consciousness. Yeah, it's mad. I don't know what happened to it actually. I think I gave it back to him.
Well, it's also those stones called devil's toenails, aren't they? You ever seen those ones?
I had heard of them.
They look a bit like a shell. They kind of look like a stone representation of a shell. But I think they're called devil's toenails, I think.
Wow, I didn't hear that. But we drifted off a bit, back to the steganographia, but that actually doesn't contain magical squares of numbers, but it does contain conjurations in a barbarous language, and I think that sort of resembles the coded words obtained by these shortwave numbers stations on the one-time pad. That it's just sort of like anyway, I seem to, well, I didn't connect it. There's a guy called Tom Cahill on YouTube, and he was saying that with magical squares, like his theory is that the American sexologist Alfred Kinsey, he wrote those 2 famous books back in the late 40s, early 50s about sexual behavior. And his really interesting theory is that, because in those 2 books, the sexual behavior in the human male, and his other one, the sexual behavior in the human female, there's lots of tables throughout the book. there's lots of tables of numbers, and if you look at them in a different way, they could actually be magical squares that sort of encode like the correct astrological time to do sort of, well, basically paedophilic rituals, and maybe the sexual positions to assume, and the actual sexual practices to perform, and the demon that's summoned by each ritual. And it's quite an interesting theory, because I did download a copy of the book, and I haven't analysed them, but you know, there's lots of sort of tables throughout the book that look like magical squares to me, you know.
Speaking of demon summoning, have you seen that book, which is supposed to be for children, called My First Book of Demons? An ideal Christmas gift.
I saw that mentioned on a Bob Larson video.
Yeah, and it had the sigils in it, which I refused to look at, and talking about the various demons and how great they are, and you know, this is how you can summon them, and what a great idea it is to get children to draw sigils for summoning demons. And they said it's all based on the sigils found in the Seal of Solomon.
Blimey.
Because Solomon was quite happy summoning demons to do things for him.
Well, that's actually the thing that you can kind of pick apart by looking at the language and certain other aspects that, you know, okay, maybe there was a Rabbi Solomon, but it definitely doesn't trace back to the pre-Christian era.
I think you got to watch it.
You do find in the Bible, some of the characters in the Bible were better in the first versions, and I guess, I don't know, I guess after the rabbis came on scene, they wanted themselves to be the better moral example than the prophets. So
there's sigil. I know you've done a lot of work with the Key of Solomon, Jafer, but I mean, I sort of said last show that my most terrifying experience was with the Goetia. I had a copy of the 1975 Jimmy Page Equinox Books edition, and I didn't even summon them. You know, I was just looking at that page with all the sigils on it, and I was just like looking at them. I was tranced out to it when I was about 14. I didn't summon them at all, but one came. You know, so I must like think that when we're looking at these sigils, the demons know that we're looking at them at the same time, and
that's when you heard the noise on the roof, weren't it?
Yeah, that's not the whole story, though.
Oh, right. Is there a lot more than that?
Well, the calling them the old ones is definitely, you know, there's definitely a lot of truth to that aspect of that, and they're here first. So when we show up, they're just watching, and they decide to influence. And I've encountered people that, yeah, they didn't really have any intention. Maybe they followed that's why you can't just be some armchair sort of.
It's sort of like
either with a broadcast of some sort of ritual or something that you're watching, or in person. You just can't. You have to definitely be active in your own beliefs or whatever to be able to witness these things, because you never know what it's going to follow you along with. I've known plenty of people that like have had, well, not that many, but definitely people have told me or confided in me about experiences they've had after certain shows. It's not like they're trying to imitate the magic in the show, but something about it does something to them.
Well, as I say, it doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. They believe it, and that's how they gain power, isn't it?
That's one of the reasons I've become Christian, by the way. I just thought to myself, well, these people that are really powerful and quite evil seem to be worshipping the devil, or creatures which look like the devil. Now, maybe there's something to this to Jesus after all.
All conspiracy research, like, it comes back to like negative malevolent entities, like all my research anyway. I mean, it all seems to come back to that, like cults and individuals contacting these entities, and that seems to be what it is. You know, what
it's probably
the
not
occult is.
It's probably not just cults. It's probably governments as well. I mean, if something's that powerful, you want it on your side, don't you? You don't want to chance someone else.
Well, one of the things one of the things, particularly in my country, is this complete lie of this separation of no, whoever's in power in any sort is acting according to their beliefs. That's completely unavoidable. There's nothing that can be done about that. So this pretending otherwise has allowed a lot of stuff, certainly.
Because I think like what's going on with Trump.
How many American presidents had, you know, at least astrologers that they referred to?
Didn't one of them meet a man in black? I can't remember who that was, but I'm sure one of them said. I think it was actually in his actual. He said it himself. I think he met a man in black. Maybe that was one of those crazy conspiracy theories that you get on the internet. But
wasn't Kennedy's assassination an occult ritual? I've heard that somewhere, but
I'm convinced it was. Yeah.
Well, there's out of North Carolina and some other parts of the country, there's this group, the Order of Nine Angles, and they definitely encourage people to join police and military in order to make in order to get that opportunity to dedicate their violence.
Inside roles, yeah.
And and there's other groups that have involved in that. There's a fairly big YouTube figure, E.A. Quetting, who supposedly has acquired weapons that have been used in war and stuff from people, probably because of maybe through his Order of Nine Angles connections, maybe not. He's officially not part of it, but that's just what he says. But I've definitely talked to people who've say they've done crimes for stuff, or they've joined the police to dedicate their intention towards that. Not that I'm encouraging that.
I do find them very interesting, the Order of Nine Angles. Like, I'm so old, I actually bought stuff from them in their, they called it the ONA1, like version 1, didn't they? I'm so old, I actually used to buy things from them in the late 80s. Yeah, it's very strange. But like I say, it's dangerous stuff. Like I was saying, I didn't conjure up any demon. I was just idly looking at the sigils. I didn't do anything, apparently, consciously. And so, yeah, if you actually develop a relationship with one of these entities, yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows what could happen? But this Kinsey guy I was talking about, I mean, he was very like lauded at the time, but it's since come out that he was quite a strange person, that he circumcised himself later on in his life in the bathtub.
Alfred Kinsey.
Kinsey, yeah.
The one who did experiments on giving orgasms to babies.
Yeah,
he was a bit strange.
A member of a certain tribe, yeah. And he circumcised himself in the bathtub without anaesthetic, and did other sort of strange sadomasochistic.
That's dedication for you, isn't it?
Well, there's people in my country that they just didn't realize until they decide to finally read the Bible themselves, and particularly if they do it wrong. But technically, it's like, technically they can defend on the religious freedom thing. That's why it hasn't been banned in my country. Is that even though they prove that, it's actually the medical opinion that even if you have a disease or something, you only cut off the disease part. You don't even cut off the whole foreskin. So that argument flies apart, and they cut they put forward misleading studies about, a community that chastity is more common, even if they are circumcised, they're more likely to not have diseases that most people in this day and age, I guess, have. But if they do engage in that behavior, they get it more. So, but some of these very studies that find this, they put forward a headline that's extremely misleading. But yeah, it's and the interesting thing is the Jews, they didn't really even get the Israelites didn't practice it, and they repicked it up from the other tribes in the area. So there was a gap. After
the Egyptians did it.
What?
I heard the Egyptians did it, and then for whatever reason the Jews copied them, which always struck me as an odd story. So weren't they their slaves? In which case, why are you taking this this past ritual from your oppressors.
Well, that's the thing that I actually saw, that they actually kind of went away with it, but they were surrounded by other Semitic people who did it, and they, over the centuries returned to it.
I just see it as ritualized trauma-based mind control, really. I mean, it's
the mind control aspect of it doesn't really, it's a communal thing that you don't even remember. Yes, you're most likely to heal on the 8th day of life, and that's where we get our New Year's from, is the circumcision of Jesus.
But I don't believe that. I think that trauma stays for you for your entire life. Doesn't matter how young you are.
They have shown that, but I mean, as far as being most effective in directing behavior, you really want to wait till puberty,
like the Muslims do.
That's where there's a division, because there's actually Quranic and other reasons why they wouldn't engage in that practice. So you do find the people who practice it are most likely to be from communities that used to be Jewish. But outside of that, you have a difference. Some say 7, some say 8, some say 13, some say 15, because 15 is when they, assuming they've hit puberty, 15 is when the male is considered to be fully accountable.
So Muslims do circumcision at age 15?
I've seen I want to say
Pakistani. It depends on what culture, but actually it's not a universal in Islam. Muhammad never taught it. He never, there's narrations to this effect that he never taught it. He never practiced it, but he didn't stop a Jewish woman from doing it. He just told her that God will reward you the less you cut. So logic says don't cut at all. And there's stuff about Quran Surah 3, it's 191, mentions things not being created in vain, and people say that refers to the foreskin as well. And there's been sheikhs, particularly in the modern age, that have said the uncircumcised, when they get dressed, they should say this verse. But that's an extra tradition that's been added by. But anyways,
here's a strange fact. Like I'm getting echo in it, but every male member of the British royal family, they're all circumcised as part of the tradition. So there's something a bit strange going on there, I think.
What, do they get a mohel over to, suck the blood from the stump?
Well, they're so strange, aren't they? Because they're like Nazis, aren't they? The British royals, they're always dressing up as Nazis or doing like Hitler salutes, aren't they? The Queen, is that famous picture of the Queen doing the Nazi salute.
Isn't it the Queen and Margaret?
Well,
and also the Queen Mother?
That's one of the things that's gone too far, is this accusing people of it's like the Nazis didn't have anything particular to themselves. Yes, if you put it all together on a flag, but I mean, lifting the arm like that was
Roman.
There
was some things unique to the National Socialists. I mean, one of them was to ban vivisection, and that greatly upset the Jews because they were pioneers of vivisecting live animals, and the Germans criticised them as being barbaric, which apparently is anti-Semitic. So.
Well, I read somewhere once that apparently all of Hitler's when you take apart Hitler's speeches and the way it was staged and framed and stuff, apparently it was to honor the god Mars, apparently, and that's kind of why he led to an early end, because he was using those kind of powers, which would then make sense, make the Roman salute make sense then, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I suppose it would. But they did another of the pioneered things. They had environmental conservation, they banned smoking, and also they banned homeschooling, which in Germany to this day, because I had a German saying like how much greater Germany was than England and how their press is so much freer. It's like, all right, so can I homeschool my children? No, you wouldn't want to. Our schools are great. But what if I wanted to homeschool? Well, you shouldn't. You can't. It's illegal.
But it's like the rule.
You definitely, if you have children, you definitely want to teach them anyways. But one of the problems that is, I'm sure we're not the only country that should even out its education, but it does vary per neighborhood how well the education goes. You know, the tax bracket of it all, which should absolutely not be the case. It should be, you know, whether you're the upper class or not, there should be, you know, good schools in your area.
What's your take on this whole Nazi occult business, Jafer? I'm just curious, kind of.
Well, there were definite connections to various spiritual paths. And anything from the swastika on Hitler's childhood church, or to various other things, and obviously one of the Holy Grail myths were definitely something that they tapped into the energy of, and Vishnu and the disc was sort of the thing with the swastika, as much as anything else. They make a pretty good argument about the Book of Esther that was kind of already used. They didn't quite go to the point of saying that Esther is really. I mean, Mordecai is Marduk, Marduk lives, and Aster, an older pronunciation of the Aramea name of the book, is really Ishtar. I mean, literally, that was one of the names in that language. That's how you pronounce Ishtar, is Aster. But it doesn't mention God. It doesn't really have that good of morals. It's just to lift up the position of, do whatever for the Jewish people, and the rabbis get to direct the holidays. So there's really no authority connected to God connected with the Book of Esther. So was it Martin Luther who made the same argument?
I don't know, but I mean, they were obviously into something. I mean, they had the skull and crossbones on their caps, like right at the site of the third eye. You know, they deliberately put the skull and crossbones where their third eye was, and you know, the castle in Wilsberg and all that. Where I don't know whether that was like LARPing, like Nazi LARPing a bit with Heinrich Himmler. I know he was a bit of a strange character, but.
Well, you definitely found that wherever they could appropriate a site, even whether it was abandoned or whatnot, or relic into their mythology as a country. I mean, definitely there was an overlaying Christian theme of Nazi Germany, but they incorporated a lot of forgotten elements, or a lot of elements that weren't incorporated into the whole thing to make them.
It's a very strange.
That's the sort of thing that's rising, is the whole blood and soil way of thinking.
It seems like a very strange combination of like so-called crackpot like theories and sort of actual like things where they really knew what they were talking about, and I just find it fascinating. But the thing is that there isn't a grimoire of Nazi occultism, isn't there? If they were actually into it, there doesn't seem to be like this is what we believe sort of thing. Like there's no Nazi occult grimoire, is there? I know Otto Rahn was like.
Well, the Thule Society, I think, had some texts, but again, it's. But you'd expect some sort of secret tradition of some sort. It's like those who weren't high up in the Hitler Youth and the SS and stuff. They didn't want it that somebody found in their parents in their in the attic a book of.
They couldn't be too forward about it. They couldn't be too obvious about it, I suppose. No, because
it's like the Freemasons. You couldn't have. Well, I mean, they obviously didn't technically run any country. Certain individuals among them definitely did. George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and such were Freemasons, but but later on it got to be where you could have literally a book of all the Freemason. Nowadays you can have literally a book where I don't, because I'm respecting certain people I'm related to in that respect at the very least. But you could have a book where all the grade rituals that even you know, you can't even expect to go to a lodge and find that people have memorized enough to you know, lead you through all this, through all the little lectures of the grades.
Yeah, I think with Freemasonry, I think it's not particularly the actual rituals they perform. I think that's more of like, I'm not being like disrespectful, but I think that's more like amateur dramatics, like the actual rituals they perform. I think the actual sort of like the actual magical power of the Freemasons is what happens afterwards. Like, they do the rituals, and I think that the rituals were designed to trigger dreams, like lucid dreams, like the night or a few days after they actually perform the rituals, like staring at these, you know, that very ritualized, very concentrated like space and doing rituals in it. I think that's just designed to trigger lucid dreams where other things go on.
There's a lot of people who are admitted Freemasons that actually have become teachers of stuff of lucid dreaming and such like that. And you know, although Manly P. Hall, I don't think Manly P. Hall actually unveiled any, you know, okay, everybody's seen the aprons, and well, not everybody, but I mean, the aprons are in museums and the tracing boards are in museums, so that's not really, you know, he wouldn't have been breaking any oaths by his books, I don't think. But there's certainly a lot of people that are into symbolisms and experience and stuff like that that come from that background.
Because I know if I contemplated one of the Freemason tracing boards, I pretty much guarantee that I'd have like a lucid dream about such symbolism, like the night after I looked at it and things. Because back in the 90s, I was doing lucid dreaming, and I'm convinced that I went. Well, I did go to like a place in the dream world, as we could call it, where it's like it was like an alchemical Rosicrucian Freemason, like a pre-existing. I don't think I was making it up as in normal dreams. I think that was like a pre-existing plane, and the main focus of this plane on the dream plane was like this big mansion with like a big spiral staircase in the center of this mansion, and just like loads of books in it, and lots of, you know, on the outskirts there was just like strange things, like, you know, like lecterns, like book lecterns. And there was this there was caves, and there was these tall lecterns with these books on the top of them, but I couldn't work out how to read the books because the lecterns were so tall. I couldn't read these books, but that was a very fascinating few months, you know, of lucid dreaming.
I asked a friend, why is it that when you sleep and you try and read things, it's all alien and incomprehensible, likewise with numbers? And she said, well, you see, when you're asleep, all but the most basic parts of your brain are shut down. So you can still, speech is still working, but actually reading written language, numbers, requires more advanced parts of the brain to be turned on. So normally that doesn't work.
Because I mean, whoever investigates dreams, I don't know. Has there been scientific study? I know when they do it, they just make it really boring, don't they? But I know Carlos Castaneda and that. They were into dreams.
I was going to say there was the what they called the psychonauts. There was a group which were practicing lucid dreaming with intended goals, and they would go into it. I came to the conclusion recently in dreams, the reason I float about and seem to have telekinesis is because that way my arms and legs aren't being used. Otherwise, they'd start flailing around in the bed.
That's strange, because every I've said it before, but every time I have a flying dream, I like flap my arms like a bird, and then I just go straight up, and I'm flapping my arms like a bird.
Oh, fair enough. Because in mine once, I mean, I can move from one place to another. I notice my legs are never moving. I'm just gliding somewhere, or just floating above the ground. So still the same height as if I was standing, but the legs aren't doing anything.
That's such a strange thing. But I know that the Carlos Castaneda lot, they used to do like group lucid dreamings where they'd all lie down in a circle, like with their heads in the center of the circle, and just go on like group lucid dreams. And that sounds fascinating, that sort of stuff. But
the Church of Hermetic Sciences in California did that practice, as they had, is that for their tattva path workings, they would lay with their heads kind of together in this.
Yeah. Because there's such a waste, isn't it? I mean, we dream every night. We should be making more use of it. But hopefully, some people are. Well, people are. Yes.
Well, it depends on the use too. I mean, how many guru cults kind of try to program people to dream, but it's all about, oh, thank you for showing up in my dream. It's you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't go to. I mean, one hopes one doesn't go up to some random woman and thank her for your fantasy at some point, you know.
Well, that's a whole nother thing, isn't it? The succubi and incubi. I mean, I've had some crazy succubi and incubi experiences, but what the hell is going on there? You know, because they seem like or the ones I've met seem like they seem real, but at the same time they seem like some sort of, not a projection or a hologram, but I'm not sure. The ones I've met always seem like doll-like. They look like dolls, you know, like white-faced sort of dolls. But
they are real.
I think they are, yeah.
I've only encountered succubi before, but they've left me feeling drained every time.
I can't really remember what was that. Yeah, I've only met succubi, yeah, but it just seems to, I've said before, there was one I met that looked like this white doll, and she told me to back onto her, so I backed onto her and I stood on her feet and like held onto her waist, put my arms behind my back and held onto her waist, and then she started vibrating like a very high pitched vibration, and then I thought, oh, I can't remember the rest of it, but you know, it wasn't erotic. You know, it wasn't like a sexual thing, like what they're supposed to be. That was almost like on a higher level than that. You know, it wasn't just like they want to suck your sperm or something. That was like there was something more to it than that.
They're definitely feeding on emotion, if not just the in the literal case of it. But the encounters I have, they have been. I don't want to get into too much, you know, grisly detail about it, but suffice it. One I remember. I'm eating dinner, by the way. I was about 14 years old, and one approached me and kissed me. And that kiss, no kiss has been like that in real life ever, before or since. I was 14 at the time.
Yeah, they certainly draw on something, just the interaction. Yeah, it's very odd, but God, we're diverting like crazy. I was
something about Christmas, so I guess I'll bring up something most people don't know. You know, since Yule night is, you know, Saturday sunset, that would mean that as opposed, you know, Mithra's day that it was based on, you definitely this year would have been a 26th, not a 25th, because it would have been the 5th day of Yule.
Yeah, this was supposed to be a Christmas show, but.
I thought we were talking about dreams.
Yeah, well, it's all great.
Well, that was our half-hour preamble.
Well, or boss from the Goetia has a blue sleigh. So,
well, mind you, we could turn it into dreams because we're discussing it in the show prior on the other thing. Our Zero Scrooge. One of us has got to be the ghost of Christmas past. One of us is future, and the other's present. So. There you go. Now we're going to turn these dreams into Christmas themes.
Well, there's wandering around cemeteries. I've noticed that it's probably because of the Christmas feasting and people have heart attacks. But you see a higher incidence of December 25th deaths, way more than you know, average throughout the year.
That's interesting.
I thought that was suicides. There's a spike in suicides on Christmas Day.
Well, that's true too. But there's also a spike in heart attacks and stuff too.
Because the early Christians, they celebrated the birthday of Christ. I think it was March the 29th, and others celebrated it on September the 29th. So
You know,
there's something sort of.
I thought the
Well,
science.
if
I
you
thought
look
the
at- if you
science
look
they
at
did.
some of the-
I thought the science they did said that the star came over in September. Didn't I've seen. That said many
Can I
times.
tell you
Yeah,
about that? Because I studied that.
anywhere from August 4th till September 11th are dates where the star arrangement could have been the case in 7 to 4 BCE, something like that.
I think it was.
No, we can call it before Christ. It's fine. We don't have to pretend we can use common era.
Well, it was Pope Julius I who fixed it on the 25th of December back in AD 300 or sometime. So,
Well, you know, briefly, I was interested in paganism, and I studied a lot about it. See, also astrotheology, and this is one of the reasons why I'm quite happy supporting Christianity, because I see it as incorporating a lot of pagan beliefs. And one of them is the celebration of Sol Invictus, who rises on the 25th. Because as we know, the winter solstice is the 21st, which is Saturday this year. And that's the shortest day. For the next 3 days, the sun doesn't go any higher in the sky, because if you were to plot the sun rising and falling, it's a sine wave. And sine waves, they've got peaks and troughs. So for 3 days, there's no appreciable difference. And it's only on the 25th day does it start to, sorry, not the 25th day, only on December the 25th does it start to appreciably rise in the sky again. So that story of resurrection after 3 days, I think, was a bit sort of mistold, because that's supposed to be Easter. And it's like, well, no, you've just described the sun rising in the sky again. So I quite like Christmas.
yeah, I find the solstices fascinating. It's such a fascinating thing. You've got the longest day and then the shortest day. I mean, magically speaking, they've got to be very significant. Very significant.
It's a good time to go to the Stone Circle as well. There's always a lot of fun people there, so I thoroughly recommend going to Stone Circles on either solstice.
I spent most of my life somewhere that had the same earliest sunset as Stonehenge, 426.
According to John Michel, like the 666 is like encoded into the sacred architecture of Stonehenge, and interestingly,
Well, the family of the sun, it's like Solomon. 616 was the earlier version of Revelations that had that, but not only is 666 more memorable, but it's a more solar number.
yeah, it's just the number of the sun, isn't it? It's the total of the numbers in the magical square of the sun. Yeah, I don't see 666 as evil. No, not necessarily. No.
Well, that's one of the things I do in my number things is you got to have something crazy, something good, something bad, just to show people the variety of stuff that you can have come up when you try to look up symbolism for stuff, and not get yourself to oh no, you have to do this because it's the first word or something you've interpreted it as meaning. And
someone got an interesting book. I just hear pages being flicked. Is an interesting thing with that number. If you consider in chemistry, you've got protons, neutrons, and electrons, and you do an atomic count for them. So if you go to, I'm going to do that thing now where I'm recommending people go to other websites, but there's a periodic table online you can look at. So if you want to see this, a carbon atom, carbon 12, is 6 protons, 6 electrons, and 6 neutrons. And there's one which is carbon 14 that has 2 extra neutrons, which decays into carbon 12. So carbon is the basis of all life as we know it, and that is 666.
Oh, you read my mind, because I was going to mention the periodic table. In my in my sort of crazy thoughts late at night, and I suspect that the periodic table is some sort of code for some sort of esoteric system.
Oh, yeah, there's so many there's one periodic table which I think is really interesting and bears further research. Is one where it shows all the elements in spirals and shows the different groups as octaves. And it makes a lot of sense to actually say that these periodic elements are actually at different frequencies, because all of them have got a resonant frequency.
Yeah.
Well, if you've seen Aleister Crowley's Thoth Tarot, the universe card has a representation of a periodic table from the time that kind of drew the known elements as sort of a house sort of thing.
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, this might be a bit of a stretch, but like the atom. I mean, surely that relates to Atum, like the ancient Egyptian self-created deity.
Well, yeah, because it's this building blocks of all things as we know it are atoms, and therefore Atum. And I do find it interesting that for a time when I did prayers, I wouldn't say Amen, because I just thought to myself, well, you're celebrating Amen Ra, and what's that sun god got to do with anything? That's the Egyptian sun god.
Because I think they drop they drop hints, like the Royal Society of Chemistry, like their web page has part of their website has a web page showing the alchemical aspects of the periodic table, and this is the Royal Society of Chemistry. It's not some crazy conspiracy theory website. And I think they're dropping hints.
Well, it's like. Have you ever seen the map they use on the UN logo? It's the flat Earth map.
Well, how else are you going to include everything that they could possibly have, though?
Because the scientific paradigm is like the basis of reality, really, or the current reality. So
OG Snake Eyes, he says that the Earth's on a 66.6 degree tilt. Well, I was always told to believe it's between 21 and 23 degrees. It wobbles. Look at the Milankovitch cycles, because it shows all the permutations of Earth's orbit. He says that it travels around the sun, that is Earth, at a mean velocity of 66,000 miles per hour. Oh, sorry, 66,600 miles per hour. I know the distance between the Earth and that, so I'm going to do some calculations, and I'll come back later on and see verify that. But before I do, we're talking about websites. CERN's website, their logo is 666.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
That's crazy, I thought you would.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But they did a weird ceremony when they launched the LHC, where they had this funny dance, and I was like, so are you like a legit bona fide physics research laboratory, or are you some sort of weird occult ritual for summoning demons, which I believe is what happened.
So, yeah.
And that's why the world's been, I think that's why the world's been strange, because ever since the Large Hadron Collider's been turned on, the world's gone very strange and disturbing.
Well, is that when the world ended? Was it? Because there's that theory, isn't there? That's when the world ended, and that's why everything's going to crap.
Yeah, people say the world ended, but I read into that, and all it was just it was a changing of an era. So I think the old regime ended, and then now we've got this new regime where people have been saying on Twitter, I notice a lot, like 5 years ago, we want gay marriage. 5 years later, child drag queens. And I think to myself, yeah, it's also about the time when the LHC was turned on.
Well, they drop hints, don't they? I mean, it's like the empirical scientific method. I mean, that's fine. Yeah, that does work. But it's like things like the Big Bang and evolution, they're still theory. They're still theories, aren't they? It's just the same as like saying like the world's run by like pink elephants, really. At the basis of it. And it's just, yeah, they understand, or they claim they understand things like electricity, but things like that may have like effects that they and us don't know about. I mean, they might have discovered electricity and they can use it to light homes and that, but who knows what the extent of like electricity really is? I mean, that could be something to do with demons for all I know.
I'm trying to remember. He's a New Zealand bloke, I think. He's Australian. Max Egan.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he did a thing about 150 years ago. There was these massive mudslides throughout the world and mudquakes, which wiped out a lot of things. And he reckons like child labor wasn't because people were evil. It's because out of necessity that children were the only ones that were really around. And he looks at all these strange adornments on old buildings, you know, more than 150 years old, where they got these antennae on them. And they're very strange looking things. And they're saying like, oh yeah, this is a fireplace. And well, if it's a fireplace, why are there no soot marks on the stones? And why do they have these copper backs on them? So his theory is that electricity was around 2 centuries ago, but it's very different implementation how we got it now. And he reckons one of the things they might have done is use these antennae to distribute electricity to what were called fireplaces, but just copper plates that were heating up. I mean, we don't know. There's so much about history we're not taught about. I mean, like I've only recently found out.
That's what Tesla wanted to do, didn't he? He wanted to deliver electricity wirelessly, didn't he?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, it sounds like Tesla before Tesla, doesn't it?
Yeah, and he did. And so it may be that Tesla was privy to this stuff beforehand. And then there was this new regime that was like, no, we're going to do electricity via wires this time. And that way you can meter it. And there's so much about history which is just lost to us, and we're just left picking up pieces and gone, oh, what's Tartaria, and why do these ostensibly scientific researchers do things which look like rituals, which are similar to the rituals used for summoning demons, and why do they have these strange symbols which also look a lot like these symbols magicians were using?
Like you said before, why is the CERN logo? Why does it have an obvious 666 in it? I mean, it's just, they drop hints, don't they? I think they're dropping hints to people or people in the know, or just maybe they're just dangling it in our faces, like mocking us. Or
well, Alex Jones said he's apparently it's like their code of conduct or their honor system. They do have an honor system. One of the things is they've got to give people fair notice if they're going to do an attack on them.
Yeah.
And apparently fair notice also includes putting little hints in films and Simpsons, like saying this is what's going to happen in the future, which, by the way, I don't believe is...
that thing on... there was a clip that spread around of something of North Korean TV, basically how America was nuked to oblivion. But it wasn't presented as a fact. It was just a graphic that they wanted out there.
I mean, nuclear radiation. I mean, I know I've read some.
Well, apparently it's a myth, isn't it? Nuclear radiation.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? That Ramsey Dukes wrote a good account of that when he said like he went to a nuclear power station as a child, like a school trip, and he said like the only actual evidence of nuclear radiation was like a dim glowing bulb at the bottom of some sort of like water tank or something, and he was saying like he said he wanted to jump in, but of course they said no, because if he'd have jumped in, he'd have broke the spell, wouldn't he? You know.
I did for my dissertation in medical science about the effects of the cancer rates of Hiroshima and Nagasaki versus the average for Japan, and I was surprised to find that there was no real. I mean, there was a bit of a spike from people had radiation poisoning and all that, but after that, people 30 years afterwards, they're just absolutely fine. And I thought, but this radiation was supposed to stay around forever, poison the earth. And they say, it was a mid-air blast, and that's why, because that way you've got less radiated earth. And
well, why is Chernobyl so different then?
Well, Chernobyl wasn't a mid-air blast. It was goes right down into the ground, and so you got a lot of radiated soil. Plus, the other thing is that bomb, once that material's gone, it was gone. Whereas in Chernobyl, there was a load of fuel which was unspent, and that kind of went into the meltdown as well. And that also, there was a lot more material in Chernobyl than there was in the nuclear bomb blasts.
And I don't how many I don't know how you pronounce it, Fukushima or whatever.
Fukushima.
That one's so much bigger though than Chernobyl, and it's
the great. Well, yeah, that's the other thing as well. It's just with Fukushima. there was the thing that the spent fuel of it was the rods were just put on top of the reactor, which is, in hindsight, probably not a good idea. You don't want your waste, which is still radioactive, to be on top of the reactor. And then there was, it's built on a fault line, which also gets hit by tsunamis. But if the power goes out, they've got backup diesel generators to keep the cooling plant going whilst they can safely shut down the reactor. Except the diesel generators were flooded with water from the tsunami, which, in hindsight, it's probably not a good idea to have your emergency backup diesel generators in the flood zone. Maybe also in hindsight, it's probably not a good idea to have nuclear reactors where there's earthquakes and flooding.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
What the thing is, how many millions of gallons are basically just, spoiled in terms of my country's use of the things. And
well, yeah, I mean, I was told that
that's too high a price to pay for it, I think.
I was told that the Pacific Ocean would be dead by now because of all the toxic waste that's constantly going into it. Because unlike Chernobyl, they can't put a sarcophagus on it because it's right next to the sea.
Don't the OTO, the Audio Templi Orientis, don't they consider like nuclear radiation as a sentient entity kind of thing? Because like entities, I presume, are somewhere on the electromagnetic spectrum, and
well, you'd know more about it than I.
It's just like
I haven't heard of anything. I read everything Crowley had to say, but he was kind of.
Now this was Michael A. Hoffman too, like that. Something he said, and I don't know if it was him, but he was saying something like a cyberpunk kind of thing, where there's like this group of fearless sorcerers who expose themselves to nuclear radiation at nuclear waste dumps to like obtain sort of magical mutations in their minds. It's pretty crazy, but it's sort of believable.
That scientist that after the Manhattan Project, there was this like spear, the spear of. They were just trying to figure out, okay, poking around at the thing, and everybody but one person involved in all that nonsense just died in relative order. So
they were taking joke photographs of themselves, weren't they? Holding like radioactive discs and all that. Yeah.
There's actually it actually distorted the photographs of some of the people who did that. No one survived that did that, by the way, in Chernobyl, that went down there and took the equivalent of took selfies down there.
Mind you, there's this thing in Chernobyl. They call it Medusa because if you look at it, you're dead. They couldn't take photographs of it directly because it would also kill the cameras and destroy the film. So the way they did it is using sticks to push this mirror along. They would angle the mirror so they could see Medusa indirectly, and then they would take a photograph of it in the mirror. Later on, they attempted to drill samples out of it. It's core material, and they were unable to drill any part of it off. They were able to chisel some of it off by, hammering it with a chisel. And they also decided, what happens if we shoot it with our Kalashnikovs? Oh, well, bits chip off. Best not breathe those in. But it's just the fact that it's like, here's like the most radioactive thing in the world. That's so radioactive. If you're in the eyesight of it, it will kill you from the gamma radiation alone. And they're like, can't drill it. Let's shoot it. See what happens.
Well, it's actually going to eventually break through to the water table, which is going to be a second round of the whole thing. But
I mean, I guess there's no way they can pick it up and put it on a concrete plinth or something, because it's melted through all those concrete plinths.
Yeah, it's made it. It's underneath it is giving way, and how long that's going to take, I don't know. But the magical use, there's magical use of everything. Sympathetic magic, and people involving themselves. Involving the spirits and whatever. That's anything can be used for that. So
yeah.
But there's certain things that make it more likely for people to witness things.
I should imagine like entity apparitions would happen around nuclear power stations. I mean, it's quite a strange, must be a strange atmosphere there, put it that way.
It's too bad you don't play Game Zero. You'd really like Stalker. It deals with that quite a lot.
Yeah, right. I have to might check it out. Yeah, yeah. I never really got into computer games. No, I liked arcade games. Yeah, I loved Mad Planets. That was an amazing game. But yeah,
I found it hard going because it is a horror game, and there is like some real sort of scary elements in it. There was one thing that's really freaked me out, and I don't want to give any spoilers, but there's mind control in it. So, but it's also sort of based on a story which is about it's called Visitors, where these aliens leave rubbish after like a picnic on Earth, and then humans go and look at these strange.
Go back.
I don't know whether. No, the stream has stopped.
Maybe. Oh, you
no,
were cutting out, but you were cutting out, but you're all right now. Yeah,
it's coming back up again now.
Should have a 10-minute silence, 1 minute silence.
Oh, it's saying it's offline.
In memory of the stream.
Let's have a look.
I can hear you all right now.
Am I all right now?
Yeah.
I
can't hear anyone else though.
Don't know whether the streams come back up. Oh, stream offline, but it's saying.
Well, I don't have the stream loaded, so I can't. I don't know, but
oh, it says,
well, then there'd be an echo.
It says we're live now.
Yeah,
we're getting watchers. We're getting watchers back now.
Reloading it. Oh wow!
What the hell
you should hear your voice in the chat.
Why was it bad? Oh,
D-Live
D-Live started again. We're actually live on D-Live now, where we weren't before.
Yeah. You disabled the chat.
It sounds like you're in a cathedral. It's incredible.
Oh, is it?
The chat's disabled. That says the chat's disabled on YouTube.
No, there's 4 watching now. It's back up.
Oh, sorry, that was.
Finished. We've finished. We've finished. YouTube says we've finished.
There's something. There's another one go. I think there's another one going because everything has all started again.
Ascended on YouTube though. Ascended on YouTube.
There's another one running.
Ah,
I'm not seeing it yet.
Oh, it does say live stream offline. Apparently,
no, you've definitely.
I think
it's definitely finished on YouTube. That says streamed live 80 minutes ago, so it's finished on YouTube.
How long have we been gone then?
Well, about 80 minutes. Oh no, we were gone 3 minutes. Sorry.
Yeah, that's from the start of the stream, isn't it? I'm pretty sure that should be up and running again now.
No, it definitely says it's ended on YouTube. I just refreshed it.
Whilst you were doing this stuff and talking, I was looking at coins on Amazon. There's this
free
Chinese
watching live now. We're still going.
Not on YouTube. Doesn't say it for me.
We are still going. There are 3 people watching. We are going. There are 3 people watching. I'm telling you.
Could you?
I think it started a new stream.
Well, that's the thing. I'm clicking on both home and videos for Hemmingford Grey, and I'm not seeing anything on YouTube.
Oh, no, I've got it live now.
Yeah.
Full watching.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're still going, yeah.
Okay, so returning to the theme, it's something that goes back way before the, where they get the Santa Claus bit from.
Just to stop you, but may I have a link to the YouTube stream because I'm not seeing it on your channel.
I'm gonna have to stitch these 2 together to do the audio. I think. Yeah, I think I found the downside with Restream. If you lose your stream, then you have to start again. Then it starts it again. We've been going
tech support. Tech support interlude.
But the bonus about the stream dropping out is we're now going out to D live with the downhill section.
Now we're going on YouTube. We've got 6 watching now.
There we go. Everyone's come back again. Yeah. So I found the downside to doing it with Restream is the fact that if you lose, because normally if you're doing OBS to YouTube, it will stop and then restart, but you'll keep the same stream. But with Restream, it just starts a new stream if you drop out.
Yeah, what he said. Yeah, definitely.
Aren't you glad you get to learn all this technical behind the scenes stuff, dear audience? I sure am.
Right, let's crack.
So,
let's crack on.
What were you saying, Jafer?
Well, going back about 5,000 years ago, there was the often even covered in snow. They'd send somebody out with a bag to catch to get the fly agar mushrooms, and they'd have them dressed in the colors of the mushroom, white and red, and then they'd even come through they'd turn off the fire and he'd come through the chimney through the home that is often covered in snow with the mushrooms to hand out.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy, isn't it? Santa comes down the chimney, but witches go up the chimney. So what's going on there? I know chimneys and hearths were like gateways to the underworld, like in older times, and there's been cases of it, isn't there? Of like demons like underneath the hearth and that. And
well, you know that verse in the Bible, the be ye prudent as snakes and innocent as doves.
What is that to do with Satan? Santa.
Well, the basically the ascent and descent are, sort of as important, but obviously they since they had the person dressed in the since the Europeans who did this had the person dressed in the colors of the mushroom, there was definitely a sympathetic magic thing, and having them, the house buried in snow, yeah, that could happen, but going down could have definitely been a symbolic element in the whole thing.
Because a chimney's a phallic symbol, isn't it? It's like over here, there's a tradition where like chimney sweeps were invited to weddings, like to ensure fertility. And I think it's got something to do with heat and the sun and the 666 and the carbon. And yeah. But why is Santa an anagram of Satan? That can't be a coincidence, surely. I mean,
well, it's a language thing, but Satanama, is a mantra you do with your fingers. Satanama,
because it ties in with Krampus, doesn't it? You want to talk about Krampus, didn't you, Hemi? Like, I mean, Krampus is Satan, isn't he? Really? Like, it seems to me. Oh, has Hemi gone?
Later on, I guess is Satan became the Punisher rather than if Satan's the tempter, why is he the Punisher too?
The adversary.
Well, Krampus.
Oh, that's the interesting thing is it's thought to be a misspelling. There's a lot of stuff that if you pick up a tonic, they say, oh, it's a misspelling, but that has meaning too. It's like instead of Sathan, which means adversary, they call, they use the sheen instead of the semek, which would turn it into the continual scourge is actually the meaning put forward. It doesn't translate as the adversary, it translates as the continual scourge. But at some point they could have switched it, just like there's a passage in Genesis that has an older version that actually lists out angels, but they switched it to something with the number value that has it.
What language is that? The Eternal Scourge? Or?
In Aramea, which is what they didn't call it ancient Hebrew or anything like that. They called it Aramea. that's actually how the name of the language is spelt out. But they later people call it Biblical Hebrew, but it's really not. Hebrew is only what Hebrew didn't exist until the Talmud, basically. The early Christians didn't encounter anything they would have called Hebrew. Nobody called it Hebrew, but in that
So
language.
what's that bit in the Bible where there's the books of Hebrews? Can I do a joke, a Bible joke?
There was people called that, certainly, but they weren't the only ones speaking the language. And they didn't call it that. They didn't call it Hebrew. Hebrew wasn't the name of their language. And even according to the contemporary stuff by the Israelites, they didn't think they had a different language. It's like, there's like 12 different dialects of Arabic or something like that, or but
they're all Semitic.
People don't say it's not Arabic if you speak one dialect versus the other.
Can I do a Bible joke, seeing as we just covered a bit of this punchline?
Go on then.
So, why does it? Did you know that the Bible says men should make the tea? Or where does it say that then? Hebrews.
Oh God, I think we've got...
Sorry, carry on with your thing. I'm interested.
Christmas relate to Christmas is like Christ, Messiah, Emmanuel. They kind of every one of those implies something unchristian, and Emmanuel itself doesn't mean what people what you're taught in church. It means basically not only is it used for all sorts of figures, but the fact that it ends in L means it's not God; it's something of God. Like Daniel doesn't mean judgment of God of judgment; it means judgment of God. There's a difference. So Emmanuel is the speaker to and for the people for God. It doesn't mean God incarnate. There's no way to render it as God incarnate. And if you are saying that incarnation, the new, then the L at the end would mean that it's not God, but something operating on behalf of God.
Well, the other thing about that is apparently Christ means anointed one, anointed in oil. So
Christos was what they called the Jewish high priest at the time. The priest of the land was always called Christos.
I thought that was a Cohen.
Well, that's the more general term for everybody, and there's a difference. There's a difference between a Cohen or a Kohen and other types of priest. Of course, that's been blurred all over the place, even in Arabic, where at its root it's a different type of priest. It's basically like a soothsayer. It's not a good word in Old Arabic, but it's the same basic root. The controller of the axis is what it means in Aramea. So the language of the Jewish Bible, it's not a good thing. And all these enemies, Jeremiah, Isaiah, they all basically said, don't trust these ha-kahanim.
Well, this is the trouble I have with Christianity, because the Bible, and because for many years I followed the King James version because I was told that that's the most accurate translation available. But now I've learned that that contains loads of errors. So it's all up in the air, isn't it? It's like you said before, like
some of them are intentional. King James is, as much as they don't do away with this,
seems like a political thing, doesn't it? The King James Bible.
Well, King James was homosexual, and he was known as homosexual. And it's very interesting to point out, to see the fact that the condemnation of homosexuality in the King James version is less than other versions.
Oh, that's interesting. I never heard that before. What, King James was a homosexual?
The bit which I find interesting about the King James Bible is it's the foundation of commercial law throughout the world for all people, and that's why English was the vehicular language. Now, my granddad taught me, says, it's because air traffic control uses English for, so all air traffic controllers must speak English. It's like, it turns out that actually long before that, with commercial law, that's why everyone speaks English, or at least the educated used to speak English. Now everyone does.
Why do they use Mayday then, Hobbit? That's French.
Mayday.
That's French, isn't it?
Yeah, well, as George Bush told me, the French have no words for entrepreneur.
Yeah, here's a Christmas fact. Christmas crackers were invented by the British guy Tom Smith, a London sweet maker in 1846. The original idea was to wrap his sweets in a twist of fancy coloured paper, but this developed and sold much better when he added love notes, whatever they are, paper hats, small toys, and a small explosive device that made them go bang. So we invented Christmas crackers.
So he's sending out love notes to kids then, is that what it's saying?
I love it. It says like he added love notes. I don't know.
Well,
love notes in Christmas crackers? That's a bit...
Do you know the history of love hearts? Because I'm wondering if that has any relation to it. Did you have love hearts over in America, our guest?
As gifts?
Or sweets, kind of.
Well, for Valentine's Day, they definitely have the little candy hearts that you don't even see in the store in most stores except around then. But I think that, you know, since it's not really shaped like a heart and it's really shaped more like something else, I think that's where the whole thing comes from. But some people say the symbol comes from syphilium, or what's that herb that was like an anti-fertility drug back in the day that kind of went into extinction because it was overgrazed.
Ah, not lettuce then, because lettuce was consumed by Romans as an anti-aphrodisiac.
No, not lettuce. It was
no. I think I know the one you're on about.
Kind of curl. It was. Yeah, you did see part of the thing. It kind of curled. It was a heart-like symbol. It was shaped like it. Part of it was shaped like it.
Mm.
And that's how you knew that. That's how you knew the plant, as it was.
Well, I briefly want to go back to crackers, if I may.
I've just so you know, that's what a love heart is. I've just done a screen share on it.
I used to like them, yeah.
I still do. I mean, them and palm violets are tasty.
Yeah.
Oh,
they're
a blurry bit with a pink line. I don't.
They're chalky, and they got various mementos like "Be Mine" or "True Love" and things like that. And,
yeah. That sounds like what people find out at Valentine's Day, or at least buy for themselves.
Well, with love hearts in the UK, you can have them all year round because we are a romantic people, you see, here in the United Kingdom. And what better way to say you love someone than sharing sweeties with them? So I want to go on to crackers because I'm told this story and I quite like it, and I don't know if it's apocrypha or not. You've got hats in Christmas crackers. And the idea behind the hats is you put on the hats are paper crowns, and this was an old Roman tradition in Saturnalia where all the slaves would wear they too would wear crowns and pretend to be the kings or the equites for just one day.
Okay.
So yeah, exactly. And with the snap of the cracker as well, I mean, that's just a bit of fun. I don't know if there's any story behind that.
Positively homosexual. Anyway, how was it?
Oh God, we've got a skeptic.
Yeah, we've got a skeptic in the house.
Zero
politely waited till he was in private before he goes. So everyone, what was all this fact bullshit?
We're streaming. We're streaming, Capstan.
Are you not actually streaming?
We are streaming.
We are streaming.
But you're not. I've looked on your YouTube stream.
No, stream went down for a bit, and because I was using an app that distributes it, because it lost signal, it dumped the stream off and started a new one.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
Yeah, on Hemi's channel, you can't see the new stream. So
I've literally just found the new stream.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, that's one thing you can see. There's a difference of like I don't know about over where you're at, but definitely state by state, there's a difference in the foods and the sweets that are the most popular and such. And a lot of it has nothing to do with what foods grow in the area. It's just, you know, this area, this became a popular thing, and it's like, you know, something tropical will, you know, be shipped in, and that's what they use. Getting an orange in your stocking isn't the thing it was 50 years ago, but it used to be. But
Well,
nuts
like-
still is, I guess, because nuts are getting quite expensive, and people can't afford regular nuts except maybe peanuts.
That's why I'm getting clementine. See, I noticed nuts are expensive. I quite like pistachios, but I've not bothered this year.
Mate, have you not been to like a half-decent health food shop in Britain in terms for nuts, Hobbit? Literally
Yes,
gets you
I
off a
have.
bag of, yeah, but like, you know, those kilo bags or, you know, 2-pound bags of like of various types of nuts for less than 10 quid. You know, which
Well,
I know is not, you know.
That's not a great price.
Well, yeah, but
No.
still, you think what fit? You know, you think that what a pound 100 grams, 50 pence for like 50 grams or something.
Well,
Like that. Especially if you're just eating them raw.
protected, not in the shell ones over here. $7 to $13, depending on which type it is that's standard. So
What per
That's
pound?
crazy.
Per pound.
yeah.
Ooh.
$7 for a pound of nuts is not a good deal.
No, 17.
Well,
to
I
30,
personally
apparently,
I personally wait until like the next you know, after the holiday, you know, after Christmas, after the Super Bowl, stuff like this is the one to go looking for nuts, and you could catch them being cleared off for a quarter of their regular price because they figure, oh, people are buying piles of nuts in the shell for Christmas and other nuts for that, and you can catch some pretty good deals. But yeah, nuts are an expensive food nowadays.
Mr. 262 says he used to love roast chestnut Christmas markets. It's getting harder to find them now. I was quite lucky in Vienna then. I just in time for the Christmas market, and they had roast chestnuts there, and yeah, that was good. Just had a bag of roasted chestnuts, and could have done with a bit of honey, but they'll do on their own.
Well, that's one of the ones that I've gathered. One year I said, you know, there was a bunch of acorns down this one area, and I'm like, okay, I'm going down here with the bucket. I go back with the acorns, and then I fill my pockets with the chestnuts. Apparently, on the way home, and so I processed acorns and chestnuts.
Aren't acorns quite bitter?
Yeah, you gotta soak them until you don't have the brown out. You know, you gotta soak out the tannins, but they're actually
Okay.
kind of a sweet bready sort of nutty taste when you remove the tannins. But yeah, you can do yourself in by not processing some foods like acorns that need to be processed.
Yeah, it's one of those things.
So people say, "Oh, the squirrels do it." It's like, yeah, but the squirrels gnaw on stuff that would destroy our teeth.
Yeah, they certainly do that. So yeah, Christmas. We got Saturnalia, we got Sol Invictus, we have the winter solstice and the celebration of the sun coming back after 3 days, which I always find quite a fun story. But I don't know much about paranormal stuff to do with Christmas. I'm sorry.
A lot of ghost stories and oracle reading around that time of year was particularly more common. Not as common as around Halloween, but
it is one of those.
There seems to be by the way, I don't know how many people knew it in this call, but there is currently Edward Dutton or Dr. Dutton, as well as Woes, is currently streaming now for Millennial. If you're wondering about your view counts,
Yeah,
I was.
well,
Actually,
we got
yeah.
10 people. We got 10 people watching, but I can
5
imagine
of them
Edward.
are in this chat.
Well, I've got
We know the
I've got a whole one-person viewing on D Live, so that was an experiment that didn't work.
Yeah, but mate,
Well-
you always want to know where to send it. You know,
Yeah.
you've got to keep a backup of these things. We talked about this. You know?
Yeah.
Well, it's a fun podcast for later. That's the bit which I enjoy. You know, we get to hear it, and I get to hear Hemi's voice unroboted on the recording later. So if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, there's Have you put it in the show description, the RSS feed?
It will be because I'm basically restreaming is a completely different app. So all I can put in at the moment is the
multi-streaming with restream.io.
It's just the title, and then you just get that. But I shall fill all the notes in and stuff.
Yeah. So are the spirits with us tonight? Because I've got Tullamore Dew with me.
Oh, I'm just going with my deity, Carling.
Oh, sugar-free shandy.
Oh, fuck off.
I had a bottle of Hobgoblin. It's supposed to be a ruby beer, but it's really, really dark. It almost looks like a stout. It's that dark.
Mate, it's fucking student beer. It's like £1.25 in Tesco for a near pint of the stuff.
Oh, I bought one of those.
You know?
I've been buying those. You know those boxes of lager. You get about 12, and you get like 2 of each, different ones.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you mean the real ale box?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just bought a Green King one.
I must say, for some reason tonight, normally I don't feel guilty about derailing, but I do feel guilty about derailing at this time because Zero and our guest, who I keep referring to you as our guest because your name's a bunch of letters.
It's Jafer.
Like most names are. Oh, Jafer. That's easy enough to remember.
Yeah.
But all I want to do is talk about.
But close enough.
All I want to do is talk about mince pies and Christmas crackers and other things.
Well, I've got a cracker story.
Literature, aside from literature being replaced by television shows, I guess, one of the things that they still do is there's always some channel that's just some video of a log. I'm not sure how long the loop is, or if it's a loop, or whether they just have a 6-hour video of a log burning, or.
Oh, I saw that. I was in a pub and they had their screen was showing a picture of a fire, and I just thought I'd rather that was showing like Sky News or something. It was really annoying. It
used to watch pick a big old log that was going to make it through the thing, going to make it through a day or maybe even more, and just burn the thing and watch and interpret the sparks and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean that's the Yuletide log. That's a fun tradition which I wish we could have.
What's the Christmas myth about about finding your future husband? Isn't there something to do with like stirring the pie or stirring the mince pudding, or the pudding or something?
I thought it was the Yule log, wasn't it?
Is it the Yule log?
I'm pretty sure. I think you kept the last bit of the Yule log, and that assured that you were married, or I might be getting it confused with something. But I got to get my the British invented Christmas crackers. We can agree on that, but the British also created magic safe cracking by Morgan's X-ray device that enabled the combination of the lock of every safe in Britain to be read. So it gave MI5 potential access to every safe in Britain through Morgan's X-ray device that could read the combination of the safe from the outside. Isn't that fascinating?
It's a Christmas miracle.
I think it's fascinating. I think it's fascinating.
Well,
come on, who's got some Ouija board stories? Come on.
One thing that can overlap between one Christmas and Halloween, you can watch The Nightmare Before Christmas. Except the song that you sing is going to be different. You're not holding up a pumpkin going ha 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 Halloween. Kidnap Santa Claus. That's not a good one to sing in the mall, though.
How about this one? I've found some Christmas superstitions. So if you can find a kneeling donkey on Christmas Eve and make the sign of the cross on its back, you'll get your heart's desire. The Irish believe that the gates of heaven open at midnight on Christmas Eve. Those who die at that time go straight through without having to wait in purgatory. Hay carried around a church 3 times on Christmas Eve was said to ensure the cattle would fatten easier on less feed in the year to come.
Wait, that's the thing about like going straight to heaven without waiting in purgatory.
Yeah.
I thought you just go straight to heaven anyway. You have your chat with St. Peter and then he has a good old chuckle and he said, "Oh, but I don't believe in heaven." It's like, well, we believed in you. Go in, mate.
What else we
Well,
got?
the thing that makes sense about the transfer to the afterlife is that, okay, one of the things would be our influence, and how's that going to be witnessed to if we just die? You know, it's humanity basically has to die for some of our influence, for some influences of some people to completely wear off. So final judgment in that respect kind of makes sense. Is that, you know, how are we supposed to know that it's a fair trial if it can't be witnessed?
I found it.
thought you
I
were
found
your
it.
own judge.
Stirring Christmas pudding will bring you good luck, a wish, and if you're a female, a husband within the year. There you go.
Is that one of those wives' tales to encourage like women to actually make a Christmas pudding as opposed to just buying one from the supermarket?
Well, it certainly tastes better to not have the.
Oh, I've found some good Christmas birthday myths. In Greece, if the child's born on Christmas, it's feared to be a Kalikantzaroi or a wandering spirit. In Poland, they believe the child may turn out to be a werewolf.
Yeah, we didn't get to on our werewolf show. We didn't. I was going to say how to become a werewolf, but maybe that's for another time. But yeah, but about Christmas food, like back in the 1800s, like turkeys were like rounded up in October, and their feet were clad in like leather boots. Like every turkey was their feet were clad with leather boots. And then they had to do like the 80-mile hike from the Norfolk farms up to London and all the big houses. And so you got all these turkeys like with leather boots on, like walking up to London to be slaughtered. Kind of, it's a bit grim, isn't it?
Why would you put leather boots on them when they've got claws to walk on?
I don't know. That's something I found today on some website. But I suppose I suppose their feet would wear out, wouldn't it, if they had to walk like 80 miles?
Domestic turkeys, it's like they look more like vultures than what you'd expect of a turkey. Because I spent, I was like 36 years old till I never saw a wild turkey, and they, you have to look at it for a second to realize it's not a vulture.
Oh, I've got a great wild turkey story. These couple of fellas in America go out hunting wild turkey. Bag this. I think they're poaching or something. So they bag themselves a turkey, throw it in the boot along with a shotgun. Turkey's not quite dead enough and manages to pull the trigger of the shotgun and shoots one of the blokes.
How on earth does that happen?
I shot a shotgun once.
Well, there's possible, but not likely.
Yeah.
Now, turkey getting into a house or well, a barn in particular, but a house, that's happened here. There was a turkey in the one side, but the house is breaking down on that side, so that's how it got in.
I've got a totally.
Animals sometimes pull a trigger or something. Not that they hold up the gun and fire it, but
yeah. It's just while it was flopping around in the boot, it managed to catch the trigger and then bang, one of the poachers gets shot.
Nice.
I've got a totally unrelated to Christmas weird fact here that Ozzy Osbourne released his song "Mr. Crowley" 33 years and 3 months after Aleister Crowley's death.
Well, he would do, wouldn't he?
And Ozzy Osbourne was 33 years and 3 months old when Randy Rhoads of Black Sabbath died in 1982.
How about when he bit the head off that bat?
Yeah. I think he did actually do that. It's not
Well, he maintains that it was an accident because the fans used to throw all kinds of stuff on the stage.
Yeah.
But one of them threw a bat on the stage and he thought it was a rubber one. It's the story that Ozzy tells.
How does the bat not fly away?
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of weird. Unless it was a dead
He's pretty
bat.
stunned by the by
Well,
the music.
if you throw a toy at someone, it's still going to have like some, you know, if it's not even a real critter, you know, if he thought it was a rubber one, he'd expect more movement than some things. So the fact that there was some movement after it hit his hand would have been expected, and you know, and then he realized, oh no, I bet it's a real one.
Oopsie.
Yeah.
And Cliff
You
Burton.
know the interesting thing about 333, don't you?
Well, Cliff Burton, the bass player of Metallica, he died 3 years, 3 months, and 3 days after the release of their debut album, Kill Them All. So you got the 333 there with heavy metal music, and we all know what 333 is the number of.
Bronze on, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also, you got, after 3 minutes, you get a third of your night vision, an additional 30 minutes, 2/3 of it. And if you're in the dark for 3 hours and 33 minutes, you get all your night vision as a human. So it's interesting when you basically, that never happens to me unless I'm asleep. I've never actually stood in dark enough that long, you know.
Well, there is a rumor, isn't there, that pirates used to wear an eye patch, because then what they'd do at night was they'd switch the eye patch over, so then they'd have full night vision in one eye.
That's interesting, yeah.
Well, then you could go below deck. You could go below deck and have, and so it would help with rating is that you the advantage that they would have in having been below deck, but when you climb on another ship and you go in and you switch your you go down there and you switch your thing and you have the you're already adjusted on one side.
I wore an eye patch for about 6 months when I was 18. Yeah. Not for medical reasons, because I've got a slight squint in one of my eyes. So the doctor said you should wear an eye patch. So I wore an eye patch. I felt very self-conscious.
When at the point of time when Dr. Hook was in the charts.
I heard
yeah, probably was. Yeah. So, like, Jafer, is the British Illuminati the same as the American Illuminati? Because we came over there, didn't we, in the 16th century, and you got that Washington
in the
street layout.
In the 1880s, the Bulgarian Illuminati was sort of an elite organization of the richest people in the Americas and in Europe. I don't know if anywhere else was included. I definitely did research into what the official stuff about the Illuminati is, but
because I think, like, on the Mayflower and that, like the ships that came from England to America, like, we're told to believe that they were all Christians and like nonconformists, but I think there was an Illuminati ship within that thing.
As opposed to organizations like the Freemasons, although they did allow that, the Illuminati did definitely have a separate current. Not that they were all evil or something. They didn't want the control of the priest. Control the priesthood, and it was rumored that you couldn't make it to the top ranks of the Illuminati if you were Christian. That is definitely a possibility that Adam Weishaupt, how do you say his name?
Adam Weishaupt, I'm probably not saying it right.
I don't know.
But he didn't. But it's based. But the thing that turned against the Illuminati was that they didn't like the monarchy, and that really didn't fly back then.
Because, I mean, Washington, D.C., that really is laid out in Masonic principles, isn't it? You've got the pentagrams and things like that. And so,
well, there was definitely... it appears that all that was... It was done by individuals that were Freemasons, and you did have government... you did have stuff... Oh, the legislator is all Freemasons, so why don't we just hold the meeting at the lodge and then switch over and have the lodge meeting? And there were incidences of stuff like that happening. But the interesting thing in American history in terms of the Freemasons was Albert Pike.
Yeah, he's the man, isn't he? Yeah. Lucifer worshipper, yeah.
Southern general to... that they still have his statues. The only Confederate general that they allowed to maintain his position, basically. But I don't know, was he high enough in the Freemasons at the time to facilitate not.
I think he was 33 degrees, wasn't he? I think.
Well, he redid the rituals based on his research into a comparative religion. He died with honors in three respects, multiple respects, I guess. Because he was of the Confederacy, because he was the top of the Freemasons. He was, he got his honors as a Christian, and he got his honors as a Klansman. And it's very interesting in that respect was that he was a Klansman who was against racism. He was asked by other members of the Klan to put a stop to the Pearl Hall lodges and some other things that would have helped out the black community. And he was like, he renounced some things he said later in life. This wasn't all in one session that this all happened, but he basically, if people are of good moral character and they accomplish something physically or intellectually or whatever, it doesn't matter what their heritage was that they were born from. So he believed in meritocracy in that respect, and so he kind of don't expect a prominent Klansman to have said some of the stuff he did.
Because he also introduced Luciferianism, didn't he?
Basically Luciferianism is it's not supposed to be an evil thing, although a lot of people it's a disguised or perhaps sort of Satanism sort of thing. There are Satanists amongst them, but Luciferianism is sort of a self-liberation thing, and that's what you can kind of tie to the Mithra. There was a lot of Mithra figures worshipped as a Mithra, as an intercessor and that sort of thing, but a lot of it wasn't as a vicarious sort of thing. A lot of it was sort of as a figure that you can sort of, bring yourself out of your own darkness. And that's the key point that pretty much every Luciferian will admit to, is that it's about through your own deeds, through your own figuring out, through your own through your own gnosis, if it doesn't come through if it comes from somewhere else.
Because Lucifer's definitely not Satan, is it? Some Christians
say
they're the same, don't they?
Dante and Milton and Blake, but before that, you really don't have that. If you've ever seen the Easter Vigil, it says that Jesus is the Lucifer of Lucifers. If you leave some of it untranslated, that's what you're arriving at. 4 passages in the Bible, 4 passages. Not 4. Is it 3? You get Revelations 22:16. There are versions of that actually use the word Lucifer. If you talk about the book of Daniel, the fact that one of his buddies was renamed to Abednego, Nego meaning being a word for Lucifer. So basically, Daniel, the guy being a servant of, so Daniel being the one in charge was considered the Lucifer of the time, if you put it back in that language. And there's a lot of figures like that, is that they did their own hero deeds.
He's such a fascinating character, Lucifer, because you've got I don't know if they're Muslims, but you've got the Order of the Peacock Angel. And they seem to.
Oh yeah, the
Yazidis. That's it. Yeah.
But the Yazidi culture, that's definitely something I'm probably going to go into in more detail at some point. I definitely. But the Yazidi, they're actually a culture that I've traced back 30,000 years. 12,000 years they were. 12,000 years, 10,000 years ago, that range, they were a really big culture. Next to the only bigger religious group that you can think of going on in those periods is that 17,000 years of Western Europe in particular, where you had the Therianthropes symbol that was like 6 or 7 different animals, one of them being a human, all blended into one, and that was the symbol. But the Yazidi mythology kind of goes.
Do you know much about the peacock? Why do they choose the peacock?
Well, one of the incarnations of Shaitan, which in Avestan, which is the older language for that group, and that's where their calendar starts is that so many years ago, 5700s, I don't remember exactly how many. Basically, they have the longest running calendar, and it's based on the peacock incarnation, which their tradition is degraded, and it was put down in Arabic at some point. That's why people think it was a lot of it's like Akbar calling for the recording of old of whatever mythology and stuff they could get a hold of. Didn't mean that whatever that that the Hindu mythology that you can't find record of before that was all of a sudden Muslim theology. That it's like making that argument, and nobody really makes that argument. But basically, Shaitan took on different forms. The cast out of a place. It's basically Iblis, Diabolos, whatever name for the devil. Malik Taus got that name. A snake, a black snake with a black dot or a couple black dots above its eyes. There were different incarnations, but the peacock incarnation is said to be the one that revealed their current scripture, which was said to be significantly bigger, which I do kind of believe, since like the Vedas, we've lost at least, there are said to be 7 Vedas at one point. And I think they uncovered like a 5th Veda was actually by one of the names but for some reason it hasn't been published en masse. I don't even remember what it was called, but there was a 5th Veda I think that they've discovered in recent years.
That's fascinating.
But yeah, it go. Is it NBC the one that has that little peacock thing? That looks just like this ancient statue that predates what we're supposed to know about. That's said about the Yazidi culture. But the fallen angels kind of take over. They don't want to bow. They don't want to bow to Adam, and basically the light beings and the fire beings unite. Is the goal of the Yazidi. That's I'm jumbling here, but
well, I think that's what goes on, this jumbling. I mean, you've got like I said earlier, Alfred Kinsley, and he's into Aleister Crowley, and he went over to Sicily with Kenneth Anger, the underground occult OTO filmmaker, and they go over to Sicily and try to do this documentary, which seems to be lost, but which is a shame because I'd love to see it. And they influence the culture, and then there's like all this what was it they influence the culture, and there's politics, and it's all jumbled up, and what the hell is going on?
Well, by jumbled I mean is I'm not trying to put into a package references entire books, archaeological sorts of findings, going back even tens of thousands of years and stuff like this. It's
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I'm expressing it, but you do find you can think that the Yazidi are like the most if you don't believe in the one religion theory, you really kind of have to say the Yazidi were the most influential religion of all times. You see their influence in Christianity. You see their influence in aspects of Judaism that are kind of different than Christianity. You see they're the ones who spread reincarnation to the Greeks and the Hindus, and the belief in such. There's a lot of things that are not quite on the surface of my memory right now, but
they have this book, don't they? Did you say they have this book, this not grimoire, but they have this sacred book, don't they? The Yazidis.
Well, there was a Sufi that went in the area and thought he should preserve their religion, so he got everything he could down into Arabic. There are some traditions that are said to still be not there, but they go on the pilgrimage to where the basically, you know, again, cast out of a place for what? So it's the same figure, but it's not as sinister as what we would expect of a massive satanic group as it really is. But it used to be the religion of the world as far as evidence is concerned. There really isn't a bigger group.
I can see parallels between like the Muslim trying to suppress the Yazidis with like the witches being suppressed back in the medieval times, as if like there's this underground religion and the powers that be really want to stamp it out, don't they? And it goes on all over the world.
72 different groups. You don't really see the contextual. You see people that were Muslim that did stuff, but it wasn't exactly their faith. They're supposed to allow, you know, the initial verse that was learned in terms of war, of the Quran. The story goes is that 20, 22, 39, and 40, basically. If if you refer to the Arabic, there's more meaning than you're going to typically find in your translation. But basically, they were told that the meaning of the purpose of war is to defend everybody's house of worship, any spiritual oratory. So they were never allowed to regardless of what someone's religion was. It's like when they went through into Mecca, there were still people. When they finally got control over Mecca, there were still people that wanted to do stuff like bring statues to the place, and they were just told, I condemn these things, but just don't bring them here. Just don't bring them here anymore. This is not the place. And people expect, why didn't they kill them? And it's like, well, no, they weren't told that. So, but there were people that went too far, too far with that. There's actually a list of 72 different groups that have persecuted them, and I guess the pseudo Islamic State is going to be added to the list at some point.
Yeah, I wonder if there's some Melek Tors or whatever who's transmitting this information to people all over the world, and they've all got parts of this ancient knowledge, and it's just a fascinating idea.
Well, there's, as I said, there's the influence you can trace, and okay, if there's, this race that fell, and even if they, whether or not they've rejoined forces, all of them or part of them, you would expect that. Yeah, that they're out there and continually trying to have an influence. It wouldn't make sense otherwise. Well, I mean, the other parts of the story kind of imply that would probably be the case.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
So the idea is that, it's like a very common notion in Satanism is that they're going to still have. God calls his prophets, but Satan calls them all over the place. So, yeah, those who have opened themselves up to that. I mean, there's no guarantee. You hear people's, you literally hear people's stories. It's like they spent a whole lifetime in what they've had one experience.
I got to ask: have you ever called up Satan?
Well. You could say that because, that definitely. Okay, no, you can say that because, I was 15, I think I was, and it was in the Egyptian guise, so Set, and so Set. I just got in my head one day when I was, I called up the thing. Using the bathroom mirror and stuff, and I, like about 5'4", this red but not quite your typical red, like another sort of red, and it told me something about destroying me, and I was like so freaked that I basically repented of the whole thing and never. But in my research, I found sort of a reference to a pre-Judaic Abrahamic transmission. So I kind of got in that for a little bit, but it was so fragmented, it wasn't really, I couldn't really make a life out of it. But yeah, I did call up that was really my first spiritual experience, you could say, because nothing else was really into that realm. I mean, I believed in spiritual, you know, I believed there was a spiritual side, but that was, I think, my first encounter.
So you sort of called Satan up like without sort of meaning to, kind of thing.
Oh no, I meant to.
All right, because I called Satan up without meaning to.
Because some of the stuff that you kind of yeah, some of your stereotypical sorcerer stuff, you know, you find it as far back as you're going to go. Not that I did anything self-harming or filthy or in particular, but I think I accidentally cut myself and got in my head to use the blood to do this. That's what that's how it went down. Yeah, something like that.
It's interesting you did it when you were 15, because that was about the time when I did it, but I didn't do it sort of. I say I didn't do it consciously, but I sort of did do it consciously at the same time, because I was really not depressed, but I just hated the world, and I just thought, well, this is like such a prison. And I went for a walk on the beach, like, and I can't really explain what happened, but I sort of called out to the darkness, but without calling out to it. But I was calling out to it at the same time. I don't know what I was doing, but a few days after that, I was in town, and I just walked down this alleyway that I'd never walked down before, and just on this sort of like doorway, there was a verse pentagram and the word Satan under it, but it was done not like some like half-assed sort of graffiti. That was done very, very artistically and almost perfect. You know, it was an almost perfect verse pentagram with the name Satan underneath it. And I stared at it for a while, and then I went down to the amusement arcade, and I started winning loads of money on these arcade machines. And I just thought, this is sort of odd, but I wasn't really into spirituality at the time. And then I got on the bus on the way home, and I just ended up in some sort of strange trance where the bus went past the stop where I should have got off, and I went to the end of the line, and I sort of woke up at the end of the line. And I'm not really sure what was happening then, but I'm pretty sure I called something up. But yeah, these strange things that happen.
Well, the one thing that, you know, I've related it to the wrong person, and it was basically, no, some of these forms, the forms of their realm is the forms of their realm. There may be some message or something connected, but the forms that things take on, it's like it had a beard, a scary beard. I mean, I was beardless. That it was like, well, you're a beardless youth, and it's just no. It was different. But yeah, so some people will say that the forms that they take on. Now, you can. There are people who kind of direct that they expect a certain thing, and well, then you can visualize stuff, and that's kind of different. But sometimes they will respond to, you know, sometimes beings will respond in a way that they think that you will relate to. But that was, yeah, it was different. It was different. I mean, I would have definitely expected Satan to be taller, and not that I don't think that if it was a physical person there that that would have put up quite the fight. But yeah, I would have expected something different. Egyptian mask or not, the beard being scary. That, you know, that fits. But
I've never actually seen a personification of Satan, but I definitely feel a sense of just like an ancient.
Because it was
just
like
an ancient
human, but not, you know.
God, has everyone else disappeared?
No, I'm still here. I was just listening, but I thought there is nothing I can contribute to this. If you want more irreverent stories about mince pies and crackers, I'm your man.
Where's Hemi? Is Hemi still here?
I think Hemi and I will...
I'm still muted, that's all. I'm still muted. Yeah, same as Hobbit.
No,
I've got nothing to add to you, fellas.
It was always...
Well, it's such a fascinating subject, isn't it?
It was basically centered around the... we got together... Initially, it was like one present on Christmas Eve, and then on Christmas. Of course, the night starting the day before, so really Christmas would have been considered the night before anyways. But yeah, the reading of the story and handing out one gift. But definitely there were Christmas things that would be watched every year, like the Rudolph thing and the Charlie Brown Christmas special. And we never really had the literature traditions other than the reading of the Bible portions.
I think our national ritual is like the Queen watching the Queen's speech, isn't it?
Oh God, yeah.
It's watching the Queen's speech while you're comatose from the Sunday dinner, from the Christmas dinner, isn't it? I
was going to say for me, my Christmas ritual is nodding off whilst the James Bond film is on.
Yeah.
That's how they program you, isn't it? Like when you're like comatose, that's when the Queen gets pincers into you, isn't it? It's like when they used to show, they played the national anthem at the end of the TV transmissions in the olden days, didn't they? When they're all going to sleep, so it like seeps into our dreams, isn't it?
Well, that's sort of why coffee took on, is that okay? People don't have the energy and the attention span overall, but they just get themselves up, and then they're crashed on the couch or the chair in front of the TV, and it works great for that.
That damn TV, like, oh God.
But people. It's one of those things that increases people's stress, but people act like it doesn't. And you hook them up to stuff. You try the. I mean, you don't get too much opportunity to do that in life, but you can test some of that, or you can just witness what it's like when they don't have it. I've seen so many people when they have their time off of work, they seem so much more stressed and all that at the end of the day than when they actually go to work. Because then they just plop in front of the TV at whatever volume they think their neighbors can allow them to have, and
that goes straight in, doesn't it? That TV signal goes straight into the subconscious, and it's like, oh yeah. So when you call up spirits, do you actually see like a personification of them, like in the room, or is it like telepathic or things like that?
Well, that's really only my time when I actually did what you would call summoning. I do cosmological things, and sometimes that makes a difference one way or the other, but I typically do my spiritual acts as a devotion to God, and well, I mean, I do them for that reason, and therefore, whatever I witness in the middle of it, whatever I don't witness in the middle of it, it feels good. I feel, I consider myself as doing something right, regardless of what my experience is. It's like sometimes other stuff, sometimes it's difficult to do the right thing. It's not that you don't do it the second it becomes difficult. Or think you can get away with doing something else.
Because ever since a child, I might be mentally ill. I do have that. I do have that. I don't think I am, because if I was mentally ill, like I'd be mentally ill all the time. But
well,
the
thing is that
you
wouldn't be, if you were mentally ill, you wouldn't be doubting your sanity, would you?
Exactly. Yeah.
I side with Jung. Jung didn't really think mental illness in terms of accept what you did physically. So if you're physically deluded, that's a whole different thing than spiritual. If you, I mean, he didn't have the authority to say, "Oh no, you don't have that snake spirit in you." He just said to the woman about some woman that she couldn't cut. They were going to try to keep her from cutting this thing out of herself. So as long as she wasn't hurt, so if she didn't have this idea of hurting herself, what, it's not really something modern psychology can say anything about. And trying to drug people to do away with their spiritual connections leads to suicide more than anything closer to a cure, far more often. And drugging people to the point where they just don't function. It's like, as I'm saying, the TV people get to the point where they just blast themselves out on the TV, and then whatever stress arises, they blame the nearest person. The second there's any quiet, it's like, oh, it's all your fault. I'm super stressed out because now you're in the room. It's like you were listening to the TV at 85 decibels.
Yeah.
If the neighbors weren't any nearer, they would have phoned the police. Well, not any nearer, but you know what I mean.
I just find it fascinating when, like, because I don't really speak to people who do stuff like this.
But I've had various experiences that I would say go beyond a physical thing, and the physical moving along with it. There's certain psychiatric and sensual occurrences. By psychiatric, I both include the emotional and the intellect and intuition, that sort of thing.
I saw something earlier on today, actually. So I was going to start off with this, but I was just walking along along this private road, and that was like pitch dark, and there was no street lights, and I was just walking into town, and suddenly ahead of me I saw this figure, and as I got close, she was walking ahead of me, and I was sort of like gaining on her, and as I got closer, I just saw that it was like a middle-aged woman, but she had this long beige coat on, but as I looked at it, it looked like sort of shimmering shaggy, I know it sounds crazy, but it looked like shimmering shaggy fur, and that's when I knew it was a spirit, because I've seen things like this before. And as I got closer and closer, I saw that she was walking, but her shoulders were like strangely, like, I can't explain it, her shoulders were like strangely like hunched over or hunched up, and I walked past her, and I didn't look back because I knew what it was, and then an owl hooted like like a horror film. It's just like, things like that happen to me, and I've got no idea why. It's like things have come to me, and like it's not like they talk to me, and it's not even telepathically. It's like I see them in the room, and it's almost like they communicate through their facial gestures, but not in like a cartoon way. It's like something passes between us through their eyes and through their like facial expressions, and it's just like, I can't work it out, because I don't know why they're coming to me.
The thing is, I think they're all over the place. It's like people talk about possession, and it's like, oh no, pretty much everybody has to deal with possession. That's not, but it's to some degree consensual, right? But the most common thing that I notice is a sense of presence.
Yeah.
Nothing else, just this presence that's different. People say, well, it's kind of like having realizing there's a cat out in the dark of the yard, and you know where the cat is, not because you see it, but because something's watching me right there, and then you find the cat. And
a presence or an aroma, isn't it? Sometimes
it's different. It's not like a crowd, even if it's super immense like that. It's like I've had very specific numbers show up in terms of the presence was like this, and it will be a particular number. 2-digit number, 3-digit number, 4-digit number, 5-digit number. This is the presence. Sometimes it's like not quite like that. It'll be like, okay, like 100,000 or 20,000 or 50 or something, but not exact. I don't know exactly, but something like that. But the sense of presence, it's not like humans there, though. It's not like animals there. It's like something else.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And sometimes it's like you even get a shape. You don't see a shape, but you have a sense that the presence is you know, forming a nexon with this particular space.
But I don't know why these things or these spirits, because they're not demon. I know they're human spirits, but I don't know why they're coming to me. It's like they're coming to me for advice, but I tell them that, why are you coming to me? I don't know what to tell you. That I'm not going to say like go into the light or something, because I don't know what happens when you go into the light. So I don't know why they're coming to me. You know, it's like I can't help them. You know.
Well, just because I mean, so say they're not human, it doesn't mean they're not they're demons anyways. Just like I say, I mean, the reason why in referring to a particular group I say become a living demon is because I'm referring to something. Well, one, I'm not going to call these people gods, but and two, yeah, I don't think people become gods anyways. But it's a specific thing that's a choice. It's like I don't think all these fire beings are all demons. I think that, well, you can call them elementals, whatever. It doesn't, people are saying, oh, well, the jinn are just, no, jinn means all the, there's two, basically linguistically you're referring to beings having a choice, a moral accountability, humans and jinn. That's it. That's what the, ins and jinns, that's basically what the language is saying. So the salamanders and the undines and the gnomes and the sliffs and all that, jinn is the word that refers to that. Davos, Asurus, various things like that. But only, the demons, they're that way because, they chose to be evil is basically the thing. That dominates their character.
Well, they don't like humans, do they? It seems that.
Well, it definitely seems people talk about protection from even getting away with crimes, and again, someone I interviewed on my channel put in one of his books that the spirits will that these demons will help you get away with things. But no matter how many stories of people who almost got caught, and maybe the demons were prompting the police officers not to look here when they actually were supposed to. I mean, as part of policy, even these people ended up being caught in the same things. And another guest that I had on talked about how this one person was led to commit these crimes against him, and following the impulse.
Yeah.
Finding ways where they can twist around the contract to make it a really awful deal. There's other people that like to mess around with contracts so you get really awful deals. Are they genie as well?
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's a difference between a jinn and a demon. There's like, for example, using the Arabic terminology, you say shayateen min al jinn, but the demons among the non-human spirits. That isn't a complete translation, but you know what I mean. But then there's the anas, the shayateen the demons among the humans. So either way, they've made decisions to make themselves in a certain position, or they've stayed that way, because unlike humans, that we don't really have in that way of, like, in the Quranic way of thinking, there's no original sin. Everybody commits their sin, and when you hit puberty with sanity, not early puberty disorder where you hit puberty at like 9 years old or 6 or whatever, but when you hit it at a good teenage year where your brain's developed right and all that stuff, then you usually end up committing some sin or another, but it's not original, and you can say that's your original sin. So that's the way they think about it in that so the ones that fell, so a whole class of beings had a decision, they made the wrong decision, but that doesn't mean they're all demons. The ones that decided, oh, I'm going to continue making these decisions, and I'm going to side with the one who prompted us not to obey, and we're going to, so there were, but they became demons. that way. It wasn't that that was what they were. You know, it's a becoming process, and like you hear of people that have, like the Lucifuge Raphael sort of packs, and when they finally, you know, it starts when they start the process, but there's that moment when they finally formally do the ritual and stuff after all the fasting and all the stuff that prepares for it, and then there's like this break where they feel damned.
Yeah,
So
but-
then they've made it, but there's different strengths of, you know, it's not all black and white. There's different strengths of demons. Some are obviously more evil than others, and that goes definitely with humans. I mean, people saying, "Oh, well, if you know," people who try to make it sound like everybody's, you know, it's a whole lot different. There's a whole lot of difference between saying a couple bad words when you're 7 years old and being a serial killer. But some people really make it sound like about the same thing.
I don't see why. I don't understand the nature of why they would have anything to do with us, really, because I don't see what they get out of it other than sort of malicious pleasure of messing someone's life up, sort of thing.
Well, certainly humans see things like as being worth it for that. So that's what they.
Well, that's what I've heard. Rosemary Ellen.
I'm not saying they are worth it. People just convince themselves that it's worth it. But the thing is, if they were here first, if they're the old ones, and then humans show up, and you know, humans do a little bit better with their you know, well, you know, why is this new being on the thing, and you know, why we have to do this, and so some of them I think avoid people. That's why they pick places underground or in caves or whatnot, where people tend not to go or may never go, and then one day somebody wanders into a cave and discovers a whole mess of spirits, but they went there basically figuring, oh well, humans are going to leave us alone here.
What were you going to say, Hemi?
I was just going to say that Rosemary Ellen Guiley says that the jinn are just on a slightly different frequency to us, and they're just like people. You get some good ones, some bad ones, some malicious ones, some helpful ones. They're just like people.
Well, all the stories I know of them, there's always some sort of catch to it. Apart from Disney, I don't like Disney in the way they just make all these fairy tales be like really nice, and they take away all the warnings.
Snow White. Have you ever read any of the old versions of Snow White?
I've read some of the Grimm Brothers story, but never the one about Snow White. Why? What happens?
Well, Bertha from Hungary. You know, the story includes rape attempts and stuff like that. A lot of these stories from Disney come from more brutal sorts of stories.
Yeah. I mean, there's one Brothers Grimm story where there's this haunted house, and if anybody can sleep there at night and survive, they get the house. And there's this ghoul which comes to bother this bloke, and he picks up one of the axes that's in the house because it's got like plate mail armor and axes and other fun stuff, and just decapitates the ghoul and puts his head on the spike and is like, yeah, this is my house now. I just thought to myself, these stories are like the sort of thing I would get in a heavy metal album. They're just great stuff. And I just thought, these are the fairy tales, like the gingerbread house.
Well, you know, I've recently, you know, I'm having Celtic legends go up, and it's like one of them in particular, the guy's basically saying how much of a better person this other guy is because he's a serial killer who always has fresh human remains from the people he killed around, and it's like,
okay. Oh, just briefly, the story of the gingerbread house. So the witch in there, she's got these two children, Hansel and Gretel, which she's going to fatten up. And the children catch wind of this, they trick her, and then they put the witch into the oven, and then they just burn her alive in the oven. I'm starting to wonder, like, there's other stories where Germans have been putting people in ovens.
Putting hook-nosed people in ovens.
Well, I'm just saying, it's like, are they just like taking Hansel and Gretel, but like, you know, getting a bit over imaginative with it?
well, definitely. Once certain ideas are out there, you do see certain crimes being more often once they're out there, and stuff that's not crimes. It's like once may be familiar, like back before all these movies and stuff. The whole kissing fetish thing was. I say this because it's a learned taste, and back in the day, most people didn't seem to have it. Uh, you know, a kiss of the relative, even on the mouth, was no different than it was with your. Well, I mean, it's a different person, but you know what I mean. It was not thought of in the same way, and nowadays,
No.
you know, so people.
Well, I've been used to even strangers kissing me on the cheeks if I'm from the continent. So
It's like watching.
Certain countries do it more than
you're
others.
breaking up there. I just in the chat, Marco makes an interesting point. He says people close to God most interesting for demons, and I'd say he's got a point there, because you think about it, the more pious, not pious, no, that's not the wrong term. Pious is virtue signaling. The more I wouldn't use the term pious as in someone who really is spiritual and godly. Yeah, they would be the sort of people that demons would try and pick on and tease, and try and make them fall from grace.
It's a bigger catch, isn't it, for the demon, if they can get someone like that? Yeah.
It's
Well,
more of a challenge.
Couldn't you also say that those are the characters that, for one side or the other, it's not just pulling somebody from one side, is the power of somebody to turn from one side, that they use for good, used to, could likewise be as motivated for the other side.
I see, in a traditional, like, Christian sense, I see like the sardonic, satanic kind of thing, like, behind modern day politics in this sort of like crazy clown world circus show. Like, I see like the satanic, sardonic, mocking sort of thing behind all this. It's
well, particularly with party politics and rebelling just for and other,
it has that sort of
not even on principle. It's here's another group. Let's rebel against that, or it's wanted of me to do this, so I don't want to do it. And it's like, no matter how good it is for a person, you see that left and right is that it's rebelling for the sake of rebelling, or having an enemy just for the sake of having an enemy, even if it's no different than your side in ultimate terms.
It's just that zany, crazy element that seems to be certainly in the West, like here. I just see it as like satanic. There's satanic stuff behind it all, just actual satanic entities. And, yeah, well, maybe it probably is. I mean, God knows what they get up to. I shouldn't have said it like that, but what these people get up to, there's probably is something to do with that, isn't it? But yeah.
Right, we've been going nearly 3 hours. Are we about ready to wrap up?
Yeah, my mind's getting a bit blank.
Yeah, you get a bit too much vodka, is it, Zero?
No, it's just like I only have a certain amount of things I can say, then my mind goes blank, and it's just like,
well, just like with Easter, there really are people who specifically arrange black masses for Christmas.
Yeah, I can believe that. Yeah, definitely.
Right, so in the show links, I should be putting J. Is it Jafar or Jafar? How do you pronounce your name, Jafar? Jafar. Jafar. I'll put all your links in the chat. If you want to tell people where they can find you, what you're up to.
I don't know if I'm going to get anything else published or anything. I'm just look at my YouTube, and that's the place where I'm certain to have more stuff.
Cool. How's
look
your
at a word or a playlist. You may not like my particular project, but you'll find something in your category if it's spiritual on the channel somewhere.
Zero? How's your YouTube coming along?
Yeah, I haven't done anything for age. I've got things planned. I do want to talk about my alien abduction experiences, but I've got to get it right. You know what I mean? I don't want to just be another guy on YouTube waffling on about alien abduction.
You know,
We'll get
you
it
know,
right.
be another Whitley Strieber, do you, Zero? You don't want
Yeah,
that,
that's the thing.
you don't want that Whitley Strieber money, do you?
Well,
Go on, Jake.
you definitely have to organize things, and I'm not always the best about that sort of thing myself. But the Stryber and Joseph Smith, I kind of had. Well, I don't have epilepsy, so I don't really know what that's like firsthand. But that explained a lot of what Stryber had to say, and there could be something else with it, but it may have just been something like that built upon something.
I suspect something like that. Yeah, because he does contradict himself, and it seems like if it was a genuine
I think
contact,
Joseph Smith goes something beyond that. But if you've had migraine headaches, or
Who's the other
if you
guy
had
that
migraine headaches like unto
I think there's a lag going on.
who's that other guy, the one who wrote, is it Fire in the Sky? Is that Joseph Smith, or is that someone else? The logger.
No. Well, I said Joseph Smith because I have personal insight, having migraine headaches, what it's like to be basically stuck on the ground, and maybe blobs that if you didn't know better, you'd think they're evil. And if some people came back from a baptism talking about the baptism story, they would have been extra bright and stuff. So that could have explained some of what he mentioned. And the blinding light through his into his room very well could have just been the light through the window when he had a headache. But there's probably more to that. But it's interesting looking into the physical sides of some of these things. And when the story builds on itself, you kind of get suspicious that maybe, whether through trying to put some importance on it that wasn't there, or whether very dishonestly trying to build something up that certain things would be different than what they were. It's like I never claim any of my blinding, fallen down sort of. I know the difference between the migraines and other stuff.
Well, I can't remember who the quote attributes to, but it's you should keep your mind open, but not so open your brains fall out.
Yeah, but it's fun to believe everything, though. I sort of tend to believe everything for a temporary period, but yeah.
Well, open to be convinced, and just completely gullible about everything and contradictory, and that's how you go. Just be open-minded. It's like that's how you really go crazy.
Yeah,
you're supposed to believe in everything equally and all this other stuff, and either you act very hateful towards those who don't fall for that, or you're
Well, I was going to say, in defense of being open-minded, when you're children, they're especially gullible, because it's that sense of wonder which lets them believe in things and acquire knowledge. I think the gullibility is a bit of a mixed blessing, really, because you can be taken for a fool, and that's easy to do, but it is a way to acquire knowledge. And at a certain point, when people start taking advantage of that gets shut down. So is there a wisdom in
paying attention and trying to be aware of what's going on and what's claimed? That's definitely, I'm not standing against that at all. I'm just saying that having some grounding or having some set beliefs or something like that isn't necessarily different than
I just like the novelty of it. I'll entertain something for a while. I know it's just like mind fizz, but I'll entertain it for a while just for the novelty of it. It makes my life less boring. But yeah.
Right, okay. I think we're gonna have to call it a night there. Otherwise, we'll be doing a 4-hour stream.
No, we're not Alex Jones. We're not doing that. We're going in overdrive.
Hold on. I've just got to play the water filter adverts.
I'm gonna have to step away myself. So
just